Good afternoon. We will call this special meeting of the Grapevine Colleyville Board of Trustees to order on July 25th. It is 12:05. We do not have any public speakers, so we will move to the regular session of the Team of 8 and Strategic Planning with GCISD leadership team.
All right, so at this time, thanks everybody for being here. Leadership team on board. We have Greg Gitson of Bo Casey. As we all know, Greg has been a part of this journey with us now for years, facilitating our balanced scorecard work, our strategic planning, vision, just helping us establish that direction as we move forward in this work. This is our semi-annual update, and it's also an opportunity for the board to receive a Team of 8 with Greg. And so at this time, Greg's going to walk us through some information. Really, it's around board. It's part of that Team of 8 piece that we're going to precede the balanced scorecard stuff today. And so, Greg, you would kick it off, and then the leadership team will segue into our balanced scorecard update.
Okay. Thank you all, and if y'all remember who I am, I know the admin team does. It's good to see you human instead of on Zoom. We've got good at Zoom, and I am officially Mo Casey branded now. Dan Huberty himself ordered me some shirts, and so I'm feeling kind of special with my Mo Casey logo on. I'm going to jump in. There's really nothing in the PowerPoint. By the way, you have a working agenda out in front of you. The PowerPoint can be 15 minutes, can be 3 hours, can be a day, can be 3 days. Your superintendent and board president chose the 15-minute version.
No, he said 3 hours.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. And I like the 15-minute version, but there's not anything new in it, but I do think it would be a good anchoring back to kind of where we began the journey. And if there are any new faces, and it's just a good reminder, I think, to run back through it. So, and I know you can read, so we're going to hit some key concepts. I'm going to skip some slides since we're on the 15-minute version. But I will anchor back to, we can feel pretty comfortable about the work that we're uniquely designing for Grapevine Colleyville ISD, but it's anchored in principles that are back to total quality management, quality, like this is like anchoring back Norton, Kaplan, Singy, Deming, some anchoring back to these best practices. And so I will kick it off with Deming's quote, that it's not enough to do your best. I would argue that everybody in this room is doing their best. And we were having a really good sidebar, about, if I may, sitting here a couple of years ago versus sitting here today. Like we just kind of were chit-chatting. And the difference, possibly is just focus. We've just got laser focus. And there's an agreement now, almost a contract between the tactical team and the strategic team on what's the most important. And that's what Deming is saying. I mean, we do need to do our best, but you got to know what to do and then do your best. So we have some clarity, and I look forward to hear the scorecard report a little bit later. So this is all about a systems approach. Back to Deming, 85% of the reasons for failure are system failures in most organizations. In the absence of clear systems and processes, almost 100% of the time we blame people, because we don't know what else to blame. And it's not a good way to run an organization at any time to not think about it as 85% of the issues or system matters. But truthfully, in education today, there's just such a deficiency of, I think 52% of the classrooms in Texas this year started with teachers with less than 5 years of experience. And so we need to work on the system. There's not enough backfill of people to be blaming people, if that makes sense. That's just an added component to the timing. Now, I was, just to keep it real in here, there are some employees that we need to free up their future. It happens, but that should be the exception and not the rule. And when we're thinking about a system, we're constantly thinking about, okay, did we develop them enough? Did we train them enough? Were we clear enough? Et cetera. So anyway, we're working on systems. I didn't know that they put all these fancy transitions here, so I'm kind of like, oh, that's cool. You all know this, the systems approach, we're trying to improve student outcomes, increase staff morale, community engagement, and a better return on investment with not our money, but with the taxpayers' money, so it's truly stewardship. So your scorecard is aligned to these 4 primary outcomes, just again, anchoring back to that. You know, it is, I can give Team of 8 credit for any one of these, I can give ISO credit for any one of these, so it is a board workshop. We have the tactical team here, of course. This board, I'm going to make sure to just state publicly, has been assessing for at least 2 years now these 6 different areas, self-analysis. And so they've been working as a board while using these 6 components of this framework while they're overseeing the district on the whole of the scorecard. So the board is overseeing this work, and then they're doing this work, if that makes sense. Oversee collectively and collaboratively. The work that they're doing is making sure that we have clarity on belief, mission, vision. We have the 3 essential goals outlined. You guys have embedded it into the governance handbook, which is awesome. Progress and accountability, advocacy and engagement, synergy and teamwork. We'll talk about teamwork a little deeper here in a moment. And then financial stewardship. So that's the work the board's trying to do. They're trying to get better systems for the board to think about those 6 things while they oversee the work of the district through the scorecard. This will be one of the slides we want to skip. So just to anchor back to where we started, how long ago was it?
It's literally been 1 year.
Okay, so it's 1 year.
1 year.
Okay, wow. That's a lot of progress in 1 year. I think I misspoke and said 2 a while ago because it usually takes 2 years to do this amount of work. But the mindset, when we started a year ago, we were working on a shared mindset. We're going to drill into that in just a second. And we have to have a framework, like where are the boundaries to what this work is all about. And I guess the most important thing with this is that here sits a balanced scorecard in front of us. Just to be clear, this is the tool. This is the implementation tool. One of the reasons that I think it's good for us to pause here is that this tool can only continue to be successful if we stay in this common mindset. We have to double down on the mindset. So let's talk about the mindset. Again, I'm amazed at the transition. It's very nice. But I didn't know that those were in there. So this is the most important thing that Madam President, like this is really the reason to look at the PowerPoint. We have a very robust tool now, an execution or an implementation tool. We can't just rest on that's in place. We don't need to go back to the mindset. You follow what I'm saying? Like you have to double down on this. Is about team trust. And think about it. This can be as sophisticated as we could possibly make it. And if we wobble on team trust, it's going to break down. And we're going to start saying, we're going to go back to pointing at people, right? So today, the reason I wanted to share the PowerPoint is we've got to double down on team trust, which we want to assess again and check it. A year later, check it. Next year, check it. The year after that. You guys codified the 3 essential roles in your good governance handbook: the strategic role versus the tactical versus the operational. So you took a great first step, but we've got to double down and making sure that we're living that every day, not just have it adopted.
Right.
Okay, and then continuous improvement, which I want to talk about in just a little bit. And I can just tell you, trustees, and I know I can say anything, and you would have to take it as true, but I texted Brad when we were Zooming recently with your tactical team, and I was just like, dude, they have stepped on the gas since the last time I was on a Zoom. So I'm bragging on that team a little bit, not a little bit, a lot. And we're even talking about like the next step of cascading, right, and what that looks like. So as far as strategic alignment and this concept of silo busting and working in harmony as a cabinet, I'm here to tell trustees I see evidence strong evidence of that. So I want to drill in just a little bit. As a reminder, we're going to take a quick assessment, self-assessment, self-report in a little bit, in 4 categories: ability, believability, connection, and dependability. It's the exact same assessment that you all took a year ago.
Right.
And so we're self-assessing and checking in once a year to make sure that we still have.
Actually, we're doing it 2 times, doing it in January.
Thank you, you're right.
Yeah.
I forgot that you all did that. I'm not going to read to you, but just as a quick reminder, the 3 roles, the strategic role, board superintendent, I would argue a lot of the cabinet members that are in here are part of that. It's a big picture. I love the very last bullet, that you work on the system. The board and the superintendent and a handful of the senior leaders, they work on the system. The board stays constantly working on the system. When you go to the tactical role, and I know you all can read, but if you look at the last bullet, the tactical team, like today, is working on the system. I would assume with back to school stuff, y'all are going to quickly go to end the system as soon as this is over, right? Because there's just so much in the system stuff happening right now. My observation is sometime in September, once we get in a little bit of rhythm of the school start, it's easier for the cabinet to then kind of go back to on the system. And in the fall, once school has started, and then in the spring, it goes back to a lot of in the system, right? Because you're finishing out one year, you've got data, you've got measures, you've got course corrections, and right in the middle of that, you've got to get ready for the next year, right? So it's hard to not be in the system, but this is a good time of the year for the cabinet to helicopter up to on the system and for your tactical team. And don't forget, as I walked in, I saw your operational role, walking out a while ago, and they're 100% in the system at all times. You're not going to have a teacher run up to you and say, Dr. Snouts, could I please attend board meetings to any time you all talk about the strategic plan? Please, pretty please. But that's not going to happen, right? And I think I probably told you all a year ago when I started out as a superintendent, I wanted teachers to love me. And 23 years later, I just didn't want them to roll their eyes when they heard my name. Right? Like that's good enough, but I know sometimes I say, I'm standing right here, they're talking about me, But when they sense harmony, they could not, within 1,000 years, they couldn't tell you what's wrong, they can feel it, right? They can feel that it doesn't feel right. So we're getting kind of like to their heart on this, and when they sense that, man, the central office and the board, they're on the same, I'm getting a little talk ready for next week for a district in the San Antonio area, and the title of it is, If the Board Sneezes, the District Gets a Cold. Because they've got a lot of sneezing going on right now, and they're worried why an application or a job posting that would have netted 150 applications 2 years ago is getting 50 now. You follow what I'm saying? And it's like, what's happening? Well, there's a cold at the top, and it's pneumonia at the front line, right? And so this harmony that y'all have been working so hard is critical in a lot of very concrete ways. But man, in the abstract ways, you have no idea how powerful it is. I know when we started, the first time I talked to you, you said, let's make board meetings boring, right? And I love that. I mean, like, let's make them boring, because in some ways they should be, because we should just be focusing on the data and information and all of that. And I hope we're making some progress on that. One of the biggest things, and I apologize, it's shredding time back on the ranch, so I'm on the tractors trying to shred every night, and I've got stuff in my chest. I don't think that we looked at this before, and this will probably be the last time we really park on it, and I'll just flip through some of the other things. But if you want to go back to Deming and these fathers and grandfathers of quality, so they first articulated this: we need to plan work, we need to do work, we need to check work, and then we need to act. And I would argue with you all, y'all aren't necessarily acting now, you're reacting, right? Because you're going to plan, do, check, and then react to the new data. plan, do, check. React is probably a bad word, it's respond. Probably going to respond to the new data, course correction, plan, do. So when we think about the strategic role and the tactical role, one way to think about the structure we're trying to build here is that your tactical team does the doing and does the acting. That's that on the system, in the system. Not say they do it, like they help others. But they're 100% doing the doing and the acting. What we're building is a structure that's not required by law, where the board gets an opportunity to participate in the planning and the checking. See, that is not required by law. By law, all you have to do is a taper report every January, right? And look at 2-year-old data, and everybody tapping themselves on the back, or everybody getting mad at each other. Okay, that's all that's required by law. You're designing a system where when that tactical team is running through, you get to peek. Like Superintendent last week said, we're going to open the curtains up, and we're going to let you get behind the curtain for a little bit. Trustees. And I just think this is a better approach. I think it always was a good approach. I think in today's time of social media, this is almost imperative. Because you all, trustees primarily, I'm pointing at now, you get a barrage of the amplification of negative things nonstop. You just get a nonstop barrage. If you're not participating in the checking and the planning, you don't have this feeling that I just know that's inaccurate. Right? Because I got to look behind the scenes, and I got to, so that's more than anything else. We're just trying to make sure that the board has time, and we're going to spend 90 minutes today basically pulling the curtain back, right? And we're going to let the tactical team just like go through. Here's where we are. Here are course corrections. Here's our best thinking at this moment. I hope that's the way you framed it up with me. Yeah. Okay. Let me pause right there. That's really the money slide. I may even kill the PowerPoint. It's pretty. Thank you. It's pretty in addition to being a that. All right, everybody good with this concept of the tactical team does the doing and the acting, but we're bringing the board in intentionally on the planning and the checking. Okay, we see if there's anything else. We're working on silo busting and systems alignment. You all know that. Talk about you all, I feel like a year ago, really embedded those good strategic questions. Mm-hmm. The reminder here is when we have the curtain peeled back, it doesn't mean, and I'm not saying this is happening, but it doesn't mean that trustees, all of a sudden you're a tactician. So you're still in the strategic role, but we're letting you look at a bunch of tactical stuff, right? So this is where superintendents, if I can just speak freely, say, I'm not doing this. You're inviting the board into the weeds. We're trying to get them out of the weeds, and you're inviting them in the weeds. I hear that regularly. And it's just, my response is you're not trusting your board enough to stay strategic when you're talking about tactical stuff. And you know, I'm just kind of being funny. They'll say, yeah, but my board's crazy. You know, now back to the systems thinking, when have you ever tried to describe the strategic role versus the tactical role? Well, they're supposed to know that before they run. Really? I mean, like, I don't remember seeing that as a requirement. It was not part of the requirement, right? And then truthfully, the trustees just come in, my opinion only, and then they just start getting inundated with everything you cannot do. Like, here's another way to say what a board member cannot do. You know, here's another presentation. And it's just a negative presupposition that all board members are bad actors. And it's just completely wrong. We should assume that all board members are good actors. There may be exceptions to that periodically, but we should always take a positive presupposition and pull the curtain back.
Has it always been that way, Rick?
I think so.
I think it's just that way.
I think it's always been that way, but board members feel like they need to say more now because of so much amplification on social media. But I think it's always, My dad, 30 years ago, was the board president in the next town over when I was a brand new superintendent at 30 years old. So he's the board president, not my boss, but he's the board president in the next town over. You know, and he would say things like, son or boy, you know, I was 32, 3 kids, doctorate, you know, that meant nothing to him if I didn't know how to rope or, you know, brand a cow or, you know, whatever. But he's like, son, don't tell the board to get out of the weeds if you haven't told them what the grass is. Like, if you haven't said what we should be looking at, then don't tell me to not look at anything, right? And I remember him saying that. And then I remember him saying, don't tell board members how to think, but tell them what they need to think about. I will never forget that. That helped me so much as a brand new superintendent. Because I was kind of hardwired to say, I can maintain my position, your position, like I could tell all of you what you're doing. That stopped that real fast. It's like, no, this is a democratically elected, different viewpoint. We should celebrate that. But what we must have is just clarity about what we're trying to accomplish when we come together, right? That's what this is all about. I'm going to stop with the PowerPoint because I can get on a roll and I want the scorecard, I think, should be the star of the show.
Did you want to take the test?
Let's do the trust assessment first, and then we'll get into the scorecard.
So all we are doing is, let's just start something that way. So it's going to take about 5 minutes. It's a quick self-analysis.
It's just
Somebody Oh, I know. I just looked at something else.
Does anybody else need one?
I think we've got a bunch.
Oh, okay.
So while these are being distributed, this is on, we're checking in our third check-in on Team Trust. Again, the we is a team of 7 or team of 8?
Everybody.
Okay.
Seven.
Okay, so the we is the board. The we is the board.
We put a little
Check. And like, if you, you'll put a symbol or something on. We want it to be anonymous, but I want to give you your version back because later today we're going to look at all of the aggregated together. Sure. That way you can see where your results compare with the results. What's everybody's single side on?
Hey, that's not an answer.
A lot. Panthers.
That's
Got put in the bottom corner somewhere, just put something that you will recognize so I can give it back to you here in just a little bit. We'll take 5 minutes. There are no wrong answers. It's a perception survey.
Did we take another one? Because I thought there were other questions.
It's a,
Oh, different
that's
permit.
a good governance.
Oh.
Did you want to add something?
about the, little bit like about the item, like our score.
It was this, but it was this good governance
Yeah.
indicators that we looked at.
Okay.
The time, which one?
We're the item.
Oh, go ahead and just be honest.
It's not like, not all places, just in general.
That's correct.
Typically, don't do a right one.
What did you answer for, Mary?
Do you have the one, this one, the 6 things or no? That
I
has,
should have it in my computer. I keep them on. Oh, you mean the blank one? Yes, ma'am, I do. They start the scorecard. I can just one out if you want to grab that.
and how that's take out.
You can take it at the end, and we don't debrief it, but I'll just,
Okay,
I'll chart
let's do
it.
that.
And then
Yeah.
y'all will have
Yeah, let's
another,
do
you'll
that.
have another
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll, evidently,
It's not so much that. That one though is the actual stuff you're doing.
Correct.
Right. Because Dahlia is gonna wanna be way in on that. Hey Brad, can you grab a Diet Coke?
Yes. Anybody else need?
I'll take it back to
I'll work here.
Diet Coke.
Or,
Diet Coke. Who else want a Diet Coke? Eric?
Craig? Just bring me a water. If there's not another Diet Coke, I'll take a water.
I was gonna say, Greg, what else would you
No,
like?
Shannon will take a water.
Look, I'm not
No,
drinking.
no.
I got it,
want
but I
water.
want it.
I've never wanted water more than I want it right now.
Do you need your trust survey back?
No. Yes, you are.
So while Dahlia's finishing up, just, I'm gonna grab her and what they're talking about, thank you, we can do that very easily. We're gonna also, the good governance inventory, the 6 things that we looked at on the earlier side, they took an inventory on that earlier. In the interest of time today, we'll just take it at the end,
Okay.
and then I'll tabulate
Yeah.
the results and send you back like a spreadsheet so y'all can do it before and after. One more and then we'll get started. No rush.
No pressure.
Sorry.
Should do here.
Fine.
Well, actually, I will while she's finishing that thing. You have all the time you need. I will put this, and I know you all may be able to reflect back and think, we're trying, like, since we're doing a lot of these statewide right now, we're trying to capture not like the theory of stuff that happens, but what's really happening. So when we're trying to keep our PowerPoints like what we're seeing, with other districts. So not here, but across the state, we're seeing that some board members will take their personal experience and they take what they know from work and they assume that it works in a school, right? Like we just need to do this, And I've been a school employee for 35 years and working in for-profit also before that and now after that. There's nothing quite like a school district to make the traveling between point A and point B like the biggest squiggly line, on earth. It's not as linear, when you have people's money and their kids, and all of that. Then trying to solve a tactical or operational problem based on a personal experience, then it seems less stressful or strenuous to just talk about the tactics. For strategic thinking is kind of tough. So it's tough to helicopter up to the big strategic thinking. And then this is the positive presupposition. They truly believe that their guidance will help make something get fixed faster. And if we take a positive presupposition and to think, well, the trustees' heart's in the right place, the fact that they posted it all on Facebook last night is not good, right? But yet, if you read, if you see, a lot of times we see superintendents and board members, they post it on, and then I read it as a consultant and say, well, did you read what you said first? It's not bad, but the way that she did it is not desired. But what she shared, and in a case, this is obviously a very vivid example I'm giving. I mean, that particular board member's defense, she was saying there was no other place for me to say that. Right? So that was wrong. That they just shut her out. She didn't go to social media because she wanted to be on Facebook. She felt shut out. It was her relief valve. Okay, so we've got to build in more time to talk about that stuff. Nobody likes a long meeting, but you saw the evidence of her not feeling like she had a chance to share what she thought, if that makes sense. And then I love the last one, but you guys have done good from the very beginning. Like, let's think about the way to ask things strategically. So don't ask, why is it painted red? Ask, what is our process for determining paint color, right? My dad taught me that 30 years ago. He said, if you'll help us as board members remember how to think strategically, I'm convinced we'll stay pretty strategic. But you've got to constantly help us in our minds. All right, we took the team trust. I'm going to dish out a computer while we start the scorecard. Do you want to see that all?
Yeah, so everyone at your place, you should have a copy of the scorecard document. This is a draft working document. It's fluid, as you all know. And so I believe we're going to start off with maybe a brief 23-24 kind of in summary, if you will, and then we're going to segue into our 24-25 kind of tweaks, revisions, and just what kind of a look ahead. So, Dr. Scheiber, can you kick us off?
Yes. So, great introduction there, Greg, on some of the things that we have been working on, and it will be a complete alignment of what you just heard with the work that the tactical team, the leadership team has been doing to bring to you this draft. So part of that continuous improvement process is something that's an ongoing process that really through the district scorecard, balanced scorecard, we are refining as a district. In order for us to make recommendations on what we are going to update on our recommendations for our update, we have to reflect on what have we accomplished and where are we in the process of reaching our goals. So the papers that were just passed around that you should have was part of that reflection. The information here really shouldn't be new to you as board members because the information that's here, you've really been receiving through the year in those priority updates. So I don't think there's really going to be anything here that you've not received in our weekly updates or our monthly updates in which we are keeping you updated on our progress toward our goals. But ultimately what you see on the left column are all of the desired outcomes from our prior year's balanced scorecard. The center column is a reflection on, based on our progress, checking those progress measures, will this key strategic action or will this outcome be updated, continued, or we've completed it? If it completes it, then the recommendation might be that that outcome goes away from the scorecard because we completed it. If we're continuing it, it may stay exactly the same. And that update indicates we may make a change to what the key strategic action, the progress measures, and the outcome look like because we've assessed our needs, we've assessed our progress, and that needs to change there. So the first section of light red, because our district color is not pink, are the outcomes for priority 1. So they are the outcomes you've been looking at all year that we've been talking about in our priority updates. Center column tells you what we assess as a leadership team, the status of that outcome. So will we update it? So the first one, just as an example, the comprehensive curriculum management plan will be developed and provides a clear direction for the work of curriculum instruction. We're going to update that. That means the words are going to change from the key strategic action to the progress measures to the outcome, because we made some progress, we assessed our needs, and it needs to change. It doesn't need to go away, we've not fully completed that. It will stay in some form. Also, I'll pick another one. So again, purpose of this time is not necessarily for us to read through and talk about all of these, but as an example of our continuous improvement process, we've got to assess what did we accomplish in order to know what are our next steps. And you'll hear words that Greg talked about on that plan, do.
I'm scrolling back to it. I knew.
That's the check process that we've been doing. You see some complete also within priority 1, and sometimes there is a note there about where we were. So on all of the STAR and EOC outcomes, you're going to see that we've noted this is preliminary data until August the 16th. So that means it's not the final number. And then we've noted where are we based on our preliminary data. So the meets level for the second one in science is 59. And you're able to look to see, keep in mind that what's there in that outcome measure was a 2028 measure. So we weren't trying to meet the one designated here. So just a good reflective tool. You then see the next light gray section, because we can't use black. That's one of our high school colors. You see the same process for every priority. So we went through every outcome in the 23-24 GCISD balanced scorecard. We assessed where are we. We make notes about what did we reach, how did we accomplish it, and then we will transition to your big scorecard. So that is yours to keep. You'll have time to look back and look at that, but wanted to share with you kind of that check process. That led us to now look at the areas that we're responsible for as members of the leadership team, noting where were we on our check, and let's go back and make recommendations for how do we update our balanced scorecard. So I will start with priority 1. You will notice that in the bold print throughout this document, bold print indicates something has changed, and you can kind of reference this document, because if it says update on it in this document, it likely means the wording has changed but not been eliminated or completely different. If it says completed, you may not see that language in the scorecard at all because it was noted as completed. So priority 1, that first one, 1.1.1, the prior year it had the word develop in it. We developed the comprehensive curriculum management plan. It's time for the next step in that. So you'll see that the language changes to implement the comprehensive curriculum management plan, and the rest of the language in that key strategic action remained the same. But the whole thing is bold so that you'll be able to see there were changes there. Because we changed from develop to implement, every progress measure changes. Because how you check progress on something you're developing and how you check progress on something you are implementing and wanting to measure the fidelity are completely different measures. So that's why you see all of the progress measures changing there. Through the assessment of our needs, so the first couple really are about looking at how we're implementing the CMP now. You're also going to see that we've identified 2 main areas of our CMP to give specialized attention to. That would be our professional learning plan and our assessment plan in the district. So you're going to see some language throughout priority 1 that draw a greater attention to our professional learning plans, such as developing a committee to review and consider what should our plan be, what are we addressing, how are we checking the progress of that, and the effectiveness of our professional learning.
I promise I'm not going to do this the way through, but this is teeing up something really important on the first one. So so we've gone through a cycle, right? And then things change because, okay, then like progress measure number 1, that may always stay on here, analyze and revise.
Yes.
Okay, but number 2 might drop off.
Yes, the greatest.
Does that make sense, everybody? Because right now we're saying 2 is still important, but if another cycle or 2, that one may go away.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to share.
You will also see integrated throughout priority 1. We are so excited about implementing iReady and all of the resources that are associated with that resource. So you are going to see progress measures and outcome measures that specifically name iReady, our implementation, and how we're monitoring that. And you're going to see it really throughout priority 1 in different areas. So on, for instance, number 7 and 8 are specific to iReady implementation. On the outcomes, you notice that there is a new outcome, and that is related to the assessment and evaluation. So assessment is part of our CMP. We developed our CMP and we have an assessment plan, but we partnered with iReady and we started an assessment evaluation audit a couple of weeks ago. We're taking that audit to help us identify what assessments or tests worth taking. We need to increase instructional time. We know that. That's a need that we've assessed. In order to increase instructional time, we've got to identify things that we can stop doing. We know that iReady is replacing some stuff we already did. That's not really capturing time. So as the assessment audit, because we're bringing special attention to that, we're in phase 1 this year where we're trying some things, we're collecting data, and by May of 25, we're going to have our recommendations for phase 2, which will look like, we already know some things in phase 1 we're going to stop doing. We anticipate in phase 2, we'll stop doing some other things because we've assessed them.
Just for clarification, is iReady really kindergarten through 5th, or is it kindergarten through 8th?
Kindergarten through 8th grade with some high school implementation.
And at the high school, would it be freshmen or all freshmen through seniors?
That plan will not be freshmen through seniors. It will be based on specific needs that we've identified. So it's a little more complex than answering it that way.
Thank you.
All right, you will also see through priority 1 that the outcomes that are not gold are not recommended for changes right now. Because our STAR and EOC scores have not been finalized, and because this is a 5-year goal, right now it's remaining the same and you're not seeing recommendations for that. We are going to kind of pass the torch as we give you the rest of our updates. Our goal in this is to kind of help you see the process we went through, but our goal is also not to just read all of the bold words to you. So for moving forward, we're going to hit the highlights as we kind of step through this to just bring some things to your attention, and you'll hear from members of the team as we go around the rest of the priorities.
All right. Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. It's been a while. As we look, we're keeping key strategic actions 1.1.2 that's around reading and 1.1.3 that are around math. But we're adding to both reading and math a progress measure of use ongoing data from various sources to review, monitor, and adjust the curriculum, instructional resources, and instructional practices. So we're spending a lot of time. Dr. Shiver's been going to all of our major group meetings, setting a vision for a coherent data analysis system and culture. And we want to make sure that we have systems set up of looking at data, analyzing it, and looking at our resources and our instructional practices. Right there, you see a change in addition that we're going to monitor the participation and performance of our Ready My Path program. And that is, once they take the diagnostic assessment, the resource provides a My Plan, an individual plan for each student. So we're going to monitor, are they getting in and are they doing their plan of what they need for math and reading. So if you'll look over on the outcome measures, the two that are light gray, not bolded, are star related, and like Dr. Shiver said, those will not change at this time, but we may adjust because they are long-term goals. But we are adding 2 bolded outcome measures. Annually, all students, kindergarten through 8th grade, will meet or exceed the iReady typical growth goal in reading. So every principal, every teacher is going to be measuring a child's typical growth goal. We want them to meet the typical growth goal in reading and math. And also by June of 2025, we will establish a baseline for students meeting or exceeding the iReady My Plan stretch goal. Because first we have to determine how are we doing in that, because that goes beyond typical growth. So we want to set that baseline so then we can determine further. Yes.
Question. When we say like the iReady typical growth goal, do we know what the typical?
That is a metric that, statistical metric that iReady has come up with.
Okay, that they've already.
And it's set
provided.
individually for each student
Okay.
from their diagnostic assessment.
So, okay, so when they do their initial assessment, then it'll be based on each student. Thank you.
And the teachers have been excited about that.
They're not back yet.
But the ones I've heard from principals, they are
They're gonna be.
excited because what we've done in the past is we've had a diagnostic assessment and it's like, you know, you come up with a plan yourself. And they are scrambling. And that takes a lot of time and effort, energy, and some of their own money on things that we have not vetted out properly. Yeah. So, in their dark closet, they pull something out, you know. So we are excited about the implementation and fidelity of the program.
So moving on to college and career and military readiness, you'll see in the bold under 1.21, we did key strategic action. We are providing some additional support for students to earn their CCMR points. So if you look down at number 5, identified math and ELA high school teachers will use the SAT bell ringers from Mastery Prep daily. This is an outside company that provides some opportunities for test prep for SAT, TSIA2, and other standardized tests. And so we'll be using them to support those students who need that. And then student participation in Mastery Prep SAT boot camps will establish a baseline data. So we are going to offer that opportunity for students to participate in those boot camps through Mastery Prep. And this year we'll just be collecting data of how those students perform and the level of participation. You'll also see that there is an additional outcome measure. By June 2025, we'll establish a baseline for students selected to participate in the TSIA2 Math Boot Camp meeting the TSIA2 Math benchmark for CCMR. So that is another way, that is how we're going to measure increasing that accountability indicator. You'll notice that by 2028, the CCMR indicator for students will increase from 69% to 90%. That has not changed. So all of this really comes under that big umbrella of that particular outcome measure. The second, if you turn the page, you'll look over and see that we will, in 1.2.3, that we're going to continue to monitor progress as the CCMR task force towards our CCMR goals. And then the progress measure, we just added, we will adjust based on the data and the CCMR data tracker that we're using. We will adjust our plans and adjust our support for students. And then number 2, we've added this because this is a key piece for CCMR, and it is ensuring that the state gets the correct information from our district regarding what students have done to meet their CCMR point indicator. So on this, we're going to implement a 2-step verification process for ensuring there is accurate data submission to TEA. So a CTE representative is going to verify the industry-based certifications. and program completer statuses. Counseling representatives will verify those standardized tests like SAT, ACT, and so on. And then a collegiate academy representative will do the same in addition to the award of dual credit completions and the associate degree completions. And so we're going to work in partnership with one another just to ensure that we get all of the data to the state correctly. And then I'll turn it back for safety and well-being for 1.3.
All right, so the portion of safety and well-being, sorry.
Is that 7 through 12?
For CCM, the CCMR point is just high school.
So starting in, I thought in 8th grade they could do something.
So they'll be doing some CTE things in the 7th grade that we're implementing that are new, but that will position them to really get their CCMR point when they get in high school.
Thank you.
Real quick, like a 30-second explanation. What is TSIA to math bootcamp?
So that is going to be part of the mastery prep. So I just want to make sure, because this is in conjunction with curriculum instruction, we're partnering together on this. So that is part of the mastery prep where we're going to select certain students to be in that boot camp, and that will support them for taking the TSIA2 test. That is an indicator that is a CCMR point. It also provides those opportunities. If they take that test and pass that test, then that is one of the entry points into a junior college or a college or along those lines. So it's not just about getting your CCMR point. I know we focus on that, but it is about positioning them for that post-secondary, those post-secondary opportunities.
TSIA used to be active placer. And so,
Is
yeah.
this what my daughter had to take?
So a lot of
Before
students,
she could sign up for a math class when
Yeah.
she was entering college.
Yes.
Right.
yeah, a lot of students will hit the indicator in the reading, but our math is lagging, and so these boot camps really focus on the math aspect of it.
And will that just be for seniors?
No, I
Or
think we
is
talked
it
about
9 through
targeting
12?
it with kids that are kind of approaching that threshold, that may also be interested in taking a dual credit class that can't qualify to take it until they pass that portion of the DSIA.
Thank you.
We have a question over here.
Dr. Ray, do we follow these students post-graduation to track where they land?
Where they go, yes.
To demonstrate success or not of this program?
Yes, so there is you mean like mastery prep necessarily, or just they've earned their CCMR point, and where do they go from here? There is a clearinghouse that does track that, and so that's what we use to track what they do post-secondary.
Okay. We don't use any of their measures in here, though? Or are there measures that can't be used in here?
Meaning, kind of,
Just as far as demonstrating the success of the program, right? Ready is good, but do we go back and confirm that they've placed or landed somewhere where it would show that they were in fact ready?
So like college stuff, like how?
oh, for college,
Yeah.
So yes, so as they meet the criteria, we're just gonna go with CCMR points. So as they meet the criteria for taking the TSIA2 or taking the SAT or the ACT, all of those indicators, getting an industry-based certification, we're tracking all of that on our CCMR data tracker. And so the counselors are tracking that, and we don't get, like the AP scores until mid-summer. But then we're going to kind of know, okay, this many students are career and college ready. Because we're tracking now. We're being very intentional to make sure that they have those opportunities post-secondary. And you'll be hearing more about that in our priority report. I believe it's in August or September.
All right, so the next one on safety and well-being, there is some adjustment to this that'll be talked about in a later priority. Here on 1.3.1, this is where we're talking about the multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, formerly called and sometimes still called RTI, Response to Intervention. Ultimately, the way to think about MTSS is, we talk about grade level a lot. What is the age placement of a child at grade level in their proficiency? But we also talk about, we have students that have a need for intervention because they're not on that grade level proficiency. And we have students that are beyond grade level proficiency and they have needs for acceleration. MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support. That is how we address individual personalized student needs of either intervention or acceleration. So that's the type of information that you're going to find on the key strategic action around MTSS. Within that, this is where it's going to be very heavy implementation of iReady. So that's what you see in the progress measures. 2 new outcomes. The first one will be establishing a baseline for Tier 2 and Tier 3 iReady usage per week. I want to clarify on this. We are setting an expectation of that for our teachers to start the year. We need to monitor it and see how our preset expectation turns out in reality of our instructional minutes in our calendar. So that's why it says baseline. We are giving them expectations, but we need to monitor how well they're able to meet that. And then the second one, a baseline will be established for students maintaining, exceeding, and moving toward grade level proficiency. So here are a couple of things on this. That's about if a student is Tier 3, how are we moving them to Tier 1? If a student is Tier 2, how are we moving them to Tier 1? Tier 1 is considered grade level proficiency. You do not see in here that, yes, we are also working on students that started out in Tier 1 are moving beyond grade level proficiency and not moving back. But I just wanted to just clarify that will likely show up in a cascading scorecard. For here, the purpose of is that implementation of iReady, because iReady will also help us track beyond proficiency as well. And I didn't want you to see the words grade level proficiency as a limit or a ceiling, because that's not the intention of this outcome.
So for 1.32 and 1.33, these have been added to the scorecard. After just some reflection, we felt like both of these were worthy to be part of the scorecard. The first one is to utilize a robust system to monitor attendance, identify patterns of absenteeism, and intervene early with support for students facing challenges. And so you'll see that our progress measures include 3 things. And let me just say this about attendance, because this is what we all do understand about attendance, that while you'll see on here there is PBIS involved, ultimately attendance is about engagement. We want our students to be engaged in school so that they want to be here as much as possible. But we've called out several things that we feel are important, and that's PBIS Tier 1 attendance strategies, and then conducting our attendance fidelity checks. These are just monthly checks that we have with different campuses as we go throughout the year, that each campus experiences a fidelity check. And then as an attendance task force, we monitor and adjust our attendance strategies based on our monthly campus attendance tracking scorecard. And so by May 2025, our outcome measure is that the overall average daily attendance will increase from 95.97 to 96.25. And then 1.33, this is the implementation of a drug prevention program in partnership with Challenge of Tarrant County to provide drug awareness, because we know that information regarding vaping, fentanyl, opioids, and other illegal substances. The purpose of this is to be very proactive in the sense of it is not merely just a curriculum or a red ribbon week that we are pursuing, but we are actually going to be proactive and in our progress measures go out to the community and be where the students are. And then number 2 is to use the students in leadership for public safety announcements in conjunction with the Challenge of Tarrant Counties and Stay on Track Coalition and the Recovery Resource Council throughout the year. So both of those have prevention programs that will support us in this process. So by May 2025, we plan on having an ongoing drug prevention and awareness campaign implemented in addition to the traditional parent nights and red ribbon week. And then 1.4 for student involvement, you'll notice that 1.4.1 has not changed. This is about scholastic experiences, but we did change the progress measure. We narrowed that down. It did say in our previous one, extracurricular and co-curricular. We narrowed that down to collect participation and performance in scholastic events. And we narrowed it down in our outcome measures to begin by May 2025 to establish a system to identify the baseline participation in UIL academics. And so that is one of the changes in student involvement in 1.14 that has been updated.
If I can point out, I remember pretty clearly a year ago, you saying we were starting, we were wanting to get the exact measure, and you said, we'll figure it out. And that, like, let them get in it, let them start digging around until that, right, that time to peel it back, and peel it, that's what y'all been doing, right? And I think over time, this is 1 year anniversary, maybe in 8 years, it won't be that many changes, but if you do this right, we're doing PD, plan, do, check, add, you're gonna have gold, you should have gold all the time, right? We tested it, and now we know something we didn't know, and now we have different measures. So I think that's great to see the updated measures.
Dr. Ray, can I ask you a question real quick? On 1.3.2, I see, our progress measures and how we want to track it and everything. Are we doing anything to incentivize each campus and the administrators at each campus and also encourage kids to come to school? I mean, silly stuff, like anything, just getting them to.
Yes. So that is the PBIS, what I would call Tier 1 attendance strategies. So in the sense of how they're motivating their students to show up. So I was actually in an elementary school, and they were making an announcement that this class had the highest percentage of attendance for the week, and so they were going to get some extra recess.
Okay.
So yes, that definitely matters. In the middle school, they do other things that are important to them, since recess is not one of them. But they do need them where they are to incentivize them.
Maybe they would incentivize that.
Well, it's a balanced scorecard, so it's your 1, 3, 1, 1 tension between those two that you're always trying to strike the right balance. Yeah.
Is it me again? I'm like, is it me again?
I
More bold under my name.
Prior
right
to.
now. Okay, so handing it over to 2.1 recruitment. Torch here, passing the torch.
So in priority 2, faculty and staff recruitment, retention, and capacity building, we're going to look at the recruitment section of that, which is 2.1. That one really focused on increasing the number of job fairs that we hosted and attended, but we've changed some of the outcome measures to really target those that we get the most, for lack of a better word, bang for our buck. Where are we hiring the most candidates to our district? We want to focus and attend job fairs and for places that we know we're going to get people that want to come back to this area. We really are doing research right now to see where most of the individuals who live and work in the DFW area go to college, so those that and then want to come back home. So we're really targeting and looking to see where our new hires have come from to make sure that's where we target for next hiring season. And then we're also going to be looking at universities that have programs that really might meet our need for hard-to-fill positions, thinking about our bilingual educators, our special education, CTE. What are some programs that universities have that would really benefit us to go visit and recruit at? So hopefully we can recruit some of those candidates that would want to come to GCISD in our hard-to-fill positions. And 2.1.2, focusing on building those relationships. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. 2.1.2 is really focused on building relationships with colleges and universities. We are seeing a decline in student teachers that are in our district, and so to help increase and incentivize student teachers to choose GCISD as a place to come and complete that part of their certification program, we're going to be proactive and start building some relationships while they're in college. So making contact with those universities, offering to teach resume writing classes, interviewing skills for some of their College of Education students, so that we've got that relationship built with them, so that when they're choosing where to select the district to come and student teach, they think of GCISD first, because we've already got that relationship built with them on the front end. And So, and then also making sure that we're sending individuals that have that relationship with the university on our recruitment trips. Maybe they're alumni of the university, recent graduates, belong to some special programs at the university. It's all about building connections, and that's how we do it, by starting with the universities first and getting out there and helping any way we can so that we can get the very best student teachers for GCISD. For 2.1.3, our marketing program is well underway. We've been working with our communications team to update reasons why individuals should choose GCISD as a place to live and work. We're going to be conducting state interviews with all of our, it's going to be a 3-year rollout program with our campuses and with our departments. And we're going to use some of the data that's collected in state interviews to help market when we go out to job fairs and recruit about reasons why people stay in our district. And I'll talk a little bit about state interviews and a different key strategy. And then we're going to build a cohort of GCISD graduates who have graduated from our school district and have decided to go to college and then come back home to work. I think that's a powerful recruitment tool if you have individuals that graduated from one of our high schools and they went to college and then they want to come back and live and work in our district. So we're going to create a cohort that will help us when we're recruiting individuals to come to our district. And then 2.1.4, you'll see that there is a continuation of our Grow Our Own program. We've had a couple of informational sessions with some of our paraprofessionals and substitutes about fast-track bachelor's degree and certification programs. We're going to expand that to hopefully reach more individuals. What a better resource than people that already work in your district to help promote them in their support and growth of their own career, but then also a great way for us to grow our own and hopefully encourage those individuals to become teachers in our district.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about 2.2.1. I think this is a really concrete example of this continuous improvement cycle in effect, because looking at feedback that the district received from 2.2.3 during exit interviews, the theme of teacher pay emerged, and so then that triggered human resources and the academic side of the house to look at what are some ways that we can mitigate that, and teacher incentive allotment bubbled up. And so one of our new outcome measures for this school year is to develop a committee to explore teacher incentive allotment and the buy-in we have across the district to see how much interest we have, because there are lots of opportunities for us to incentivize teachers who are doing an incredible job already with that additional pay, and to keep our highest performing teachers in the classroom where they have the most direct impact on students. And then in 2.2.2, there were several changes in progress measures and the outcome measure. And I think this is one of the examples that Dr. Gibson was showing of developing the system. Rather than just developing our action steps, we're looking at what is our system for what we offer, when we offer it, and how we know it's effective for professional development. So rather than just looking at what do we do, how do we do it, it's really developing that system that we're constantly refining year over year. And so our progress measures this year are the action steps to develop and implement the system. And so then our outcome measure for this year would be a baseline will be established for the alignment to purpose and effectiveness of our professional development opportunities. And the outcome or the progress measures really outline all the facets of professional development. It's not just onboarding new employees or professional development days throughout the year, but looking at all the ways we need to develop our instructional and leadership staff.
So 2.2.3 focuses on building those authentic relationships with our staff and seeking their input related to work engagement. And so there were several things that we added on our progress measures. I've mentioned a little bit about state interviews with campuses and departments to really see the reasons why those employees stay in our district. We did conduct personal one-on-one exit interviews for individuals that resigned this year, and so I'll be providing a report in September that will show some of the key themes that came from those exit interviews that we did. But I'm really excited about stay interviews because I feel like that's where you're in the proactive area about keeping people, and then we're going to use that data, of course, in our marketing. We have rolled out some information, and we'll continue to do this with our principals and assistant principals and district level administrators to really provide opportunities for all staff. We do a great job of professionals with goal setting and mid-year check-ins and providing support and determining how we can further grow our teachers, but we don't do as good a job of that as with our paraprofessionals. And so we're going to roll out goal setting and mid-year check-ins for our paraprofessionals and instructional assistants, clerical staff, so that they have an opportunity to really have a conversation, one-on-one conversation at multiple times during the year about goals they want to accomplish this year, what do they need for professional growth, how can we support them to help them reach their goals in their current job, and then also as an employee in our district, what are your aspirational goals for the future for yourself?
Kelly, that'd be principal, campus principal, then?
Campus principal, assistant principal, and then department supervisors. And then we're going to celebrate the great things that we do at GCISD. We're going to continue the STARS of GCISD program that communications facilitates, but we're developed some partnerships with some of our business leaders, and we're going to celebrate quarterly the district department recognitions. Great things happen in our district at our campuses every day, but they also happen in our departments. So we're going to recognize those great things that are happening and some of the employees that go above and beyond in our district departments. Also substitutes of the month, recognizing them, recognizing our new hires, also with some of the creative videos that our communications team is working in partnership with us. We know that number 6 here, that it's really competitive market for some of the departments that we have in our district, specifically with our technology department and our special services department. And so exploring out of the box remote work opportunities is something we're going to explore as a way to recruit and retain the people in positions that could have a flexible work location. We're going to have a new hire focus group to gain feedback about the first year of employment in our district, to really see, how can we continue to improve and support individuals as they enter their first year in GCISD. And so really, it's all about gaining feedback and ways that we can improve and continue to do the things that keep people in our district.
Real quick.
Yes.
Does that also include transfers, interviews? Did we decide if there's any transfers?
Individuals that transfer from campus to campus. That's a good idea. It's not on this plan, but it is something we can monitor. And I know that when we look at that information, when they complete the form to request a transfer, it gives the reasons why. And so I can easily go and see the reasons why they requested a transfer from their campus to some other location.
But I'll also say this too, that we followed up with some transfer requests to go deeper, because sometimes they don't necessarily put, that they don't go in great detail, whatever the reasons are, right? But I know we've had some follow-up meetings and conversations with some of those employees that have given us greater insight into that.
It's not concerning, it could be, who conducts those principals, and I'm not saying, I'm just using this as an example, if the principal might be the reason that they leave, they're not going to put anything.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And all of our exit interviews are with HR, so hopefully they feel comfortable sharing if it is a concern that they have about their supervisor, to tell us their reasons why, but then digging deeper if someone's wanting to stay in our district but then transfer to some other place. Really, is it because of proximity to your home? Is it because a special position is there? Or is it because you're just not happy with your campus?
Right, that's concerning. They're not going to say it.
Yeah.
That's the reason they leave. So we need to look at that.
And then the last one is 2.2.4, and that is just continuing to looking at staffing efficiency. So we'll do a comprehensive staffing efficiency audit this year to make sure that we're establishing those district baselines for staffing for instructional and non-instructional positions so that we can continue to be efficient with district resources.
Any other recruitment retention questions before we shift gears?
You said in September you're going to give us the results.
Yes, for the exit interview.
Is anything surprising to you?
No, right now the things that I've found so far, pay is a big one, workload is a big one, but some good things too are coming out. People really like the support that they get from their administrators. They love their colleagues, the kids that they serve. Oftentimes it's just they're moving or they're staying home with kids, but some of the things that we can address would be pay, workload, support if they don't feel like they are getting the proper support.
When you provide that, will you elaborate on workload?
Yes.
What that means?
All right. Moving into our parent, family, and community satisfaction and engagement. We have a few updates here as we reflected on last year. Our first one was really when it came to how do we measure this. And so last year we had said, really before we can identify how to grow, we had no baseline data to show that. So initially, and this is a great example of the scorecard morphing over time, and work was done on it, but whether that initial outcome measure was fully met or not, we can show you what we did to get to this point and why we have made the decision to slow down that process. But so throughout last year, we needed a tool, just as we have an employee engagement survey that provides us data and dashboard materials and can really give us specific data, whether it be from campus or department. We needed something that could do that for us here. And so we did research, demos with the companies that provide this type of tool. And so in going through, identifying who does this, letting them present to us, figuring out who's best, going through budgeting this. This was not something that was a set-aside budget, and these tools cost money. And going through all of that, and then the agreement process, we would have been looking at launching a survey in May, which is comical probably if we were going to want to, former superintendent laughing over there.
Your trend lines from that point on would be going up. That's the only upside.
True, however, it would have been inconsistent because we do want to make sure we're serving people at a consistent time of year every year, and so that we're not getting those mixed feelings year to year. So, and to avoid a rushed development process of questions, making sure we're asking questions that we can receive data that we know what to do with and it's actionable. Also making sure our campus and department administrators are prepared for this to come out and have felt involved in the process. Part of that was just kind of an internal satisfaction thing that we felt like if we rushed this out, that would not have been received well.
If I may, so you're back to the balance. So you're thinking about priority 3, but in the context of priority 2.
Sure, absolutely.
We could do priority 3 fast, but do we mess up priority 2 because we're going too fast?
Yes. So we've been able to slow down that process, and the plan now being that after a first 9 weeks, hitting that spot in between first grading periods through before you hit the busyness of the holiday seasons. That way too, our people have data back before the second semester that they can be responsive to, rather than you get data in a summer that was from a previous school year. You've got new staff, you've got new families, you've got families who answered it and left, and there's really just no way to respond to that. So that is where we've shifted, and so the goal is introduce the survey in the fall semester, review data into next year, then we will have that springtime to determine next year's goals, and that also won't be rushed. So that's where we shifted. Kind of goes into 3.1.2 because the way we wanted to know if our student engagement in these district level activities and initiatives, if their families felt like they were more involved and more engaged because of that, that will be part of that survey. And so the data will really kind of give us information on how to set the outcome measures for 3.1.1 and 3.1.2. One of the things that we did talk about adding is when we're talking about our campaigns that we do, and this year we're focused on what does We Are GCISD really mean, and our leadership team back in May kind of brainstormed together, and we landed on it means being together for tomorrow. And so that's the theme for the year, and bringing in students to feel part of that, and that it's not just staff and students, but it's a collective effort together. And so we'll have campaigns around that, and that just being like a consistent message throughout the year as well. On 3.1.3, we worked last year to research fellow districts, what had been done in the past, and also what our communities do very well in programs that bring in people from everywhere and to learn about GCISD. And so we have landed on Leadership GCISD, and that is kind of to really streamline everything with what our chambers do so well, and they have Leadership Colleyville and Leadership Grapevine, and kind of tap into that name as well, because our process, ours will be semester long, but will be a monthly meeting and a graduate from this. You have now become a member of GCISD, and so we're excited to launch that in the coming weeks as we get the school year off the ground. And we've met as a leadership team and kind of have the framework for that, 4 nights a semester, learn about all the facets of the district and kind of visit different facilities to see it in action.
2 questions. Yes. What's your head count that you're thinking for?
We had talked about the first class being about 20 to 25. And if you'll remember, we garnered interest back when we started the just like general committees interest list. And so we have a starting point, do another push to see interest, and then try to, it's really about the makeup, right? We don't want every participant to be a parent. It's just like when they put together the Education Advisory Committee, things like that, this will be looking at. And then the thing is, it's a semester-long thing. So if maybe fall doesn't work out for people, and then we have a spring one. And so that's the good thing about the semester-long is it can fit people's schedules a little bit better. But it's a constant rotation. So if it's not available this first time, this is something that's going to continue to keep happening, and we're going to take feedback each time, and then we're going to, we might change up some sessions and see. So hopefully in the future, our outcome measure can be more about like what's coming out of that program. Right?
Is there a cost associated with the program? I'm asking that because I thought, is there a cost associated with the city programs?
Yes.
Yes.
We
Is there a
have.
cost associated with it?
There is, yeah.
They do provide.
Right.
They provide things like
Okay.
transportation and all that. We're trying to cut some of that out, so there should not be a cost associated with this.
But there, yeah, you have to pay like a registration. Yes, just, yes.
Great.
Okay, and so then into 3.2.1. So you do have another little color-coded handout. And this goes back to our belief statements, and I might let Sheila chime in on here if I miss anything, but we, last year, DEC, like our District Excellence Committee and some Campus Excellence Committees took some data to their participants and asked for feedback. So do you want to explain the process a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. So when we began the update of our strategic plan, vision, mission, beliefs is one of those areas that was on the plan to work on. So over the process, ultimately, we started with our District 18, which is all of our principals and our department leaders across the district. And we shared with them our current belief statements and then models of other belief statements from other districts, and asked for input around kind of really what should our belief statements, not what should they be, but what do we want them to message. Clear message was we need them to be concise so that they can be known and internalized. That was like a charge of our district leadership. They gave some feedback. That feedback then went to the DEC. And at the DEC, they were given the feedback from our district leaders, and then really also gave feedback about which ones really resonated within them. What you see is a tally mark of basically that work. So the top of the list is where I would encourage you to kind of land, and maybe down to the divide between several sevens and the 6. Because those are the just beginning belief statements that we got the most input on that resonated for our leaders and for our DEC. So the next phase will be to take these, kind of edit them, give them some finesse, some communications twists to them, and then we take it out to our CECs because we want our belief statements to be truly something that represents our greater stakeholders. And then there would likely be a parent role in that as well, so that we can have them finalized by the end of the year. So that's how we got to this, our district leaders and our DEC, to get us a starting point, and it tells us what's resonating with those two groups and moving them forward. So ideally, now that you're able to see that, you know how it was collected, if you have any feedback on what resonates with you as a board, then we would take that and incorporate it into kind of that next step. And the next steps would not include everybody getting this entire sheet. It would be us narrowing it to what is considered a reasonable number of belief statements, and that should probably be somewhere between 5, no more than 8, because you want them internalized and none, otherwise they're meaningless.
And so with that, the outcome measure now being that to go through that process that she just explained and have it to where they have been promoted and implemented into the balanced scorecard and really our communication plans as a district. In moving down into 3.2.2, this is an area where we felt like this is something that's just continual, and so we just changed that word into annually increase. Just we're always looking for new community groups, new civic organizations, and people to have GCISD have a presence with, and then for them to hear from. And I'll give a great example. Since I've been here, we had not spoken to the Colleyville Lions Club, but we are going to be out there next Friday morning. And so it's just that continual growth. So we felt like keeping that simple was the way to go. And
so on some of these, especially on priority 3, y'all are getting more and more sophisticated. Every time we talk about that, that's a good thing. But some of this is, we articulated at the beginning of the year 25, I'm making up numbers, 25 speaking opportunities, and we did 100%. Like, it doesn't need to be more complicated than that.
Right.
We said there were 25 opportunities. We hit 25 opportunities. We hit 100% of the things. So I know, I just sense like your measures are going to get more and more sophisticated. That one may never need to be more sophisticated than that, if that makes sense. We hit 100% of what we said we were going to do.
all right, and then this one is 3.2.3. You guys most recently heard this one presented in our last scorecard update at the June meeting. And I know I joked with you that we set our goal at doubling our positive TV coverage. We ended up more than tripling it, so please don't expect to double the triple. But what our
That is how sales work.
What we decided as our team was we really looked at, we have our quantity, right? And we had a lofty goal, and we felt like we hit that mark, and we are not going to just stop doing any of those action steps that we take. But what we want to look at is, rather than the how many, but more of the what. And if this is the work of our district, we shifted to more on strategy. And so our media coverage, and this would not just be TV, but that media coverage would include at minimum one story per performance objective represented in the balanced scorecard. And so you might see there's going to be someone like student achievement that we're going to get 30 from. But there are going to be some that we actually have to be really intentional about. How do you make one of these like exciting, but it's all about storytelling too. And so when we were with our district leaders yesterday, we said that what you're going to hear from us when you send story ideas to us is, that's awesome. What performance objective would you place that under? Because it also helps them see their place in the balanced scorecard and their place in the work that we do. So we switched from, how many to really what is it about? Ollie, are you talking about?
I thought you were going to open it up just a second.
Yes, questions, comments?
Would you let us know when you set those leadership GCISD?
You will all be invited, and there will be an element where you are all invited to make a welcome and take turns doing that. So we have the board
Will there be
as part of our
cookies
plan.
and
Dinner sponsor to be determined. We'd love to feed people because if you feed them, they will come. So there's some work being done there too on maybe some dinner sponsors and so we could feed people nice.
And go off and ask you something else. On the, when we go out and you meet with however many groups you meet with, can you put it out where one of us may go with you? Absolutely. I would like to.
Yes, we will work on like establishing a calendar. Most of them are Dr. Schnauz, but that's another point where, I mean, there's one of him, and so I'll give it.
We're also trying to work on.
Right. An example is that that Colleyville CEO group, Todd and Dr. Sykes talked to them in July. And so you have people who but that stems from us being there, them hearing just an overview of certain things and saying, hey, we want somebody to come back and talk more about X, Y, Z. And so we followed up with them. And what the great thing about that is that's May and a July meeting that they had GCISD representation at. So they're hearing from us more and more.
Right. So I'm going back to the good governance inventory, and I want to make a connection here. And then we have those printed out, Madam President, we can take these at the end. The fourth one, board systematically advocates for students, staff, and parents on a local, state, and national, if appropriate, level. When we talk about advocacy, oftentimes that means going to Austin, and, right?
During session.
During a session, that's right. Advocacy, first and foremost, is local. And the governance core, both we've referenced Fuller and Kimball, they say repeatedly that we get confused thinking that advocacy has to be cheerleading, and there's a time and a place for that. What's most important about advocacy locally is coherence. We're all on the same page. We know where we're headed. We know our direction. So it's coherence making at the local level and then twisting arms at the state level, if that makes sense. So when you're doing this is a great question that was just asked, how can we, and I don't want to influence the inventory you're going to take here in a little bit, but I suspect that your number 4 was low the last time. But maybe we can go back one slide. I may be wrong. You see that number 4, advocacy and engagement? Most of them are low.
Yeah.
Until you start doing what y'all are, that's my point. And then you start building these bridges that work.
I would think we would agree with that.
Right.
Well, and to that point, and kind of what y'all have said is that, because as a board, 'cause I do think our community needs to see the cohesiveness. And that's kind of when I was bringing up the website the other day, that, we have a landing page that people can go and see that this is operating, functioning, working. We're collaborating and doing all the things that are necessary. But I think the next piece of that is that we're cohesive in how we're approaching all of those things. So we would love to be included, basically.
So what else, I mean, just thinking through that, we'll start to develop like kind of a running item in the board update of here's the next few things, and you can reach out to me or you can show up.
Sure.
Some of them, we need to let them know like who else coming as guests, but some of them are.
It's an opportunity, though, is what you're building a chart for trustees to have an opportunity to go as part of. And then from the optics standpoint, which by the way is like 99% of the game, right? We can do this stuff all day long, and this is very important in this room. But the optics on that, I hate to use that term, but they're really good. one of the highlights of my 12 years in SCUC is I was talking, I surprised y'all, and I was distracted.
You were talking to
I was just talking.
Oh.
Yeah, in front of a chamber meeting, Northeast San Antonio chamber meeting. I was distracted, and all of a sudden behind me, I hear the board vice president giving my spiel. You know, on the microphone, you know, and like, I was like, okay, excuse me, wait a minute. And then he want the microphone, and I was like, no, go ahead.
Yeah.
But he did it, and I'm telling you, I had people afterwards say, unbelievable that he knew what you were going to say so well that he just did it, and we just said, do it. But we have been working on what is our message, what are collective. And he said it wasn't that hard. You gave me talking points if someone gave me a microphone. So I just pulled that out, and he was joking a little bit. We created that together. And it was like priority 1 highlights, priority 2 highlights, priority 3 highlights, priority 4 highlights. So he just reached his pocket, just pulled that out, and just gave the thing. That's the goal, right? And that took 6 years. Like, you know, I'm going to keep saying it. It was 6 years into a 12-year stint, you know, but we got just right on the same page. We're trying to keep everyone from thinking independently, but, you know, we have one voice. Anyway, sorry to hijack it. I know you've got one more. Yeah. There's a connection between your good governance inventory and this priority 3 space is my point. And I love that y'all found it in that conversation.
All right, we'll move on to 3.3, corporate and business-based partnerships. Kind of building off what we were just discussing there with, you know, really strengthening our relationship with the local chambers, Rotary, all these other civic organizations, and increase our involvement in there, not just presentations, but actual involvement at the table with those groups, with an ultimate goal of the ability to hopefully have our CT director or coordinator actually sit on the board of our chambers. You know, we can get on there and really get these connections with all sorts of different businesses, not only from a district-wide sponsorship, but ways we can also incorporate that into CTE. You know, really try to bridge that gap into that partnership to be with our students as well for internships and things of that nature. So how can we continue to reach out to local businesses and become more involved in those projects overall? Including, as we mentioned, Leadership Polyville, Leadership Grapevine, being involved with that. You know, last year we had, both of those had Education Day, and they came through, and great experience here at PDAC, you know, seeing some of the CTE kids and things that they did. It was wonderful feedback from that. We wanted to really build off of that experience and see how we can continue to build some of these immersive experiences and show people what our kids are doing, but build out on those partnerships and see what we have in some this past year, of course, we established our advisory board for CTE. It was a great accomplishment to do, and that again has people in the community, businesses, industry leaders that come together to help us understand and envision our CTE department, how we're preparing our students. And we can compare students in a book and what they all say to what is really the industry looking for and needing. So we're really growing that advisory board to meet more often, 2 or 3 times in the year, but really taking that board to a different level to help envision more of our pathways and what our programs need to be doing, and then expanding that on to interviewing, having our board members sit down and be able to do mock interviews with these kids. Everybody knows it's intimidating to have an interview, right? But if we can do mock interviews with the kids, the guys in the auto shop, plumbing, HVAC, have these kids get that experience with our partnerships and really build that opportunity. You know, a great example of what's come out of this, this summer, transportation hired one of our student workers from auto mechanics. You know, we had a great need there, and Manning just speaks so highly of the work the student has done out there. And if the student wasn't graduating, he just get running, you know, with our program. That's a testament of what we can do in finding those needs. The board as well set of goals. We really want to try to build a scholarship program ability within the CTE advisory board. So leveraging off those partnerships that we'll get to develop with companies and the other folks, maybe develop a scholarship opportunity that we can focus in for those CTE students as they graduate. We keep expanding their potential in the industry overall. That's kind of where we're starting to build and expand on those reaches. Really about establishing more of those partnerships. As everybody knows, it's about getting to the right people and organizations a lot of times, and once you get there, you can do great things. It's how we can start building that connection.
I think we're moving on to priority 4, about strong financial stewardship, internal system efficiency. Looking at 4.1.1, This key strategic action really looks at the transparency in the budget process, looks at the annual development of the process, and then, just looks at how are we going to be transparent in this whole process? What are the items that we're going to put out as a district to show that we have transparency in the process? And really no changes in regard to 4.1.1. If you flip over to 4.1.2, talks about enhanced clarity, stewardship, and transparency regarding the district finances and business operations. And just looking at the outcome measures, again, these are really established to say, hey, how are we going to show our community, how are we going to show our stakeholders that we're being transparent? What are those documents, what are those recognitions that we're going after so that we have that transparency? We saw in the board update last week about the transparency starts with basic finance level, and we are now going after the next level, which is called a debt obligation. That's one of our outcome measures that we're changing to for this year. Is we're going to take the transparency to yet another level, on the debt service side, and we will achieve that before June of 2025. However, this is not something that you just put out one time and forget about it. You have to put it out there, and you have to constantly update it. So the stuff that you're putting out there on the website, you're constantly having to update that. So it's not a stagnant thing. And so part of that outcome measure is, hey, we got to maintain this transparency STARS program or this status as well.
Yeah, it is a spinning plate on a pole.
It never stops.
Yeah, there isn't
It
a
never
setting.
stops. And thankful for a great team that works hard to keep it that way, and communications too. And then we've got, obviously, we've talked a lot about the mayor, and hopefully here in a couple of weeks, if you guys as a board will be presented with the opportunity to call for that mayor in November. One of our outcome measures under, again, under the transparency and stewardship, is just working through the fall semester to provide information, to promote the information regarding the Vader and the impact it will have on the community and our district employees through the fall semester. And then also the development of the finance committee, kind of a oversight committee, again, ability to bring in some business-minded folks to really dig maybe a little deeper into the finances of the district, and again, providing some of that transparency that I think is much needed. I'll add a plug here too. If you have not provided your nominee for that, please do so by the end of the month. And then looking at 4.2.1, develop a systematic review process for campus and department budgets to ensure efficiency and compliance. And one of the things that we try to focus on is, the funds that we have available to us this year. We want to be able, whatever we spend that money on, we want it to benefit our students this year. We try not to, hey, we don't need to go and stockpile up on a bunch of stuff that's going to be used next year. We want to use our current funds to benefit our students in this year. And so one of the things that we're, work with our campuses and departments is kind of developing a plan to effectively spend that budget, those budget funds in this current year, so that those funds are, or those items, whatever it is, used in this current school year. And so that's going to take some planning, because you can't get to May and start purchasing stuff and expect it to really be beneficial in this school year. And so we're working with our campuses and departments in developing that plan. I'll turn 4.2.
Hold on, I've got, so first of all, I want to say, good job on that award, because, when I was talking to someone about this the other day, that the award that we just got, that 5-star, I think 1,200 schools and 96 or 97, I can't remember, 96 or 97 people actually got it, and we were one of those. But, you know, when you're setting goals and you're putting down attainable, trackable things to reach those things, and then when you're stretching ourselves, so I appreciate the stretch. So I appreciate the extra work and all of those things, because it does make a difference. I was just curious as to how you're feeling in terms of, you know, now that you've been in this role and for a full, you know, duration, for a full year, do you feel like you're getting things cleaned up? Do you feel like, you know, that you're kind of, I'm trying to be positive about the way that the manner in which you found things, do you feel like they're moving in a direction that you're getting a handle on it?
100%. And, you know, we continue to work through, and, you know, one of the things that we're working on in the finance department is just on our leadership team in the department, so that we can further look for ways to better enhance the program, you know, the state compliant, be efficient in the way we do things. You know, for example, just, you know, a conversation I had just yesterday, you know, with one of the departments is, you know, we need to have conversations about the way we do things, because I've always been told we do it this way, but is it really
the best way to do it?
Is it really the best way to do it? And I think being there for a year, and credit to my director of finance, Dr. Miller as well, you know, we kind of open that conversation up to everybody to say, is the way we're doing things actually the best way to do it? And obviously I had an accountant that retired, been there in that position for 26 years, does a great job. I mean, she's my go-to, and she does things the way she does it, and I don't bother because it works, but here's an opportunity for us to say, is there a better way to do things? Not just what she was doing was wrong, but now that we got new people in place, is there a better way of doing it? And so we're really working on that team, trying to bring it all together, to collaborate, to even further look at better ways to be efficient in our operations. And two, we even had a conversation yesterday in our leadership team about working with other departments. You know, when we were talking about the cascading scorecard that we're going to be working on this fall, and curriculum management plan, you know, and how does finance really work with the curriculum management plan? And it's exciting to me to see my team look at how we can work with the CNI team, or how we can work with, you know, the curriculum management team, and making sure we were all being efficient, you know, and things are running smooth. And so I'm excited about it, and move forward. Just the we mentioned working in silos a while ago, breaking those silos.
That's funny. I just went back to the slide. That's what you're
busting those down, and being able to work, you know, finance, work across the spectrum with everybody, you know, and I don't want to be all up in everybody's business, but we need to be informed, you know, into, you know, the CNI team. We need to be a part of all that so that we know how we can contribute.
See, that's three of the, in that last 60 seconds, you touched on team trust, continuous improvement, and strategic alignment. You hadn't seen this PowerPoint, so I know you didn't pre-plan those, right? But I guess that mindset is we trust each other. We're trying to improve, so there's always something way to improve, and we're going to break down silos. That's three of those four.
If I could add to that, one of the things about his team is now that they're getting a better handle, or they have a better handle on things, is we're able to access information that we've never had before. So when you want us to be able to analyze even our own areas, sometimes we didn't have all the information that we needed for. We couldn't be completely certain that the information was really correct, in a sense, in trying to analyze what we were looking at. And so there are a few things that we still have to talk about to work out, but the openness of providing information that we never had access to really helps with now, really being able to evaluate where you are and where you're going and what the trends tell you about where you've been and where you might need to go.
Thank you for pointing that out. High five.
Yeah, it's just like struck my for a minute because that's perfect. I know that the man, I echo, like getting these designees is not required.
Right.
ASBO.
Right.
And you have to always do the cost benefit, is it worth the extra effort? And then, but the thing is, if you don't do those, it's hard to just say to your community, we do good, but if you achieve, and it's kind of when I was in college, I knew how to weld. But I became a certified welder, so I didn't have to tell people I knew how to weld. Right? I'm certified welder, and that's how I went to college, by the way. That's why I have all these scars on my hands. That's what kept me in college, is that I knew I didn't want to be a welder my whole life. But getting that certification, my point, I didn't have to prove up this thing. It's kind of the same thing they're doing with TASBO and ASBO. You're proving up. They don't just give those out. You have to achieve those, right? By best practices. So you're demonstrating best practice. I'll echo what you said. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Good.
Can I add into Derek's 4.2.1? Sometimes we share a lot in this overall plan. One of the things that you won't see here, but it's just so you know, it's part of the cascading plan, is for departments to monitor their budget on a monthly basis, looking for those trends. Again, looking at efficiencies, what things are changing, what things are coming at you, or where you had to make adjustments throughout the year to better inform how to plan and present the zero-based request going into the next budget cycle.
I'll let you keep rolling.
4.2.2, yes. Okay. So part of 4.2.2 begins with key responsibilities. And as a district, our departments did that. But the other piece of it is you really need to know what your stakeholders believe your key responsibilities should be. It can be what a department leader believes the key responsibilities are. And the next layer now is to get feedback on what others who are basically receiving your services or your work, whether or not they believe those are what your department's key responsibilities are. So that's a piece of data collection going into this year. This is about both effective and efficient operations, and just as much as the budget helps to inform on that, there's data analysis that we received last year, and then I hope what you've heard is you've heard the other scorecard updates is all this other data that's getting ready or information to come to us, whether it be from state interviews or information that Derek requires, just a lot of different things that are going to come to us in addition to what these departments in and of themselves are going to solicit by way of feedback and information about their operations, both on an effectiveness level and efficiency. There's nothing better than your direct customer or client telling you whether or not you're being effective for them. That also helps to inform you on your efficiency. It might help you decide what to abandon and move towards, or any of those kinds of things. And so this year is a lot about collecting and receiving information and data upon which to then build the next level of planning, if you will, and setting milestones. And so it's establishing benchmarks. We've heard that in some other arenas because it's a lot of information that we've not necessarily had access to. We've had some, but maybe not as robust as what we're hearing the system is now going to provide us and produce for us to look at and work with. So that's a part of 2.1, but it really factors into 2.2. It's a variety of methods that will be used. Some of it will be focus groups, especially where you're talking about students. Some of it will be surveys. Some of it will be one-on-one meetings, maybe with campus administrators. We have to be cognizant of their time. Imagine 8 to 12 different departments wanting to come talk to you and get all this feedback, right? And then it's like, wait a minute. So we have to be effective with how we're going about doing that. Part of it is also making darn sure we know what we want to ask, because it's got to be useful information. And there's an art to what you ask, not leading questions with the answer embedded in it, you know, that kind of thing. And that's really foreign for these people to know how to do that. So we have to go slow to go fast to make it right. We could ask a lot of questions. People have a tendency to ask two things in one sentence. And then when you get the feedback, you don't really know, well, was it about part A or was it about part B? So there is really an art to doing that, and it being useful both for the receiving end, and you want some sort of eventual feedback loop to those that you've just asked to spend time telling you anything. So this is a big year for data collection and information to then begin setting the next, the plans. What does it tell you? What are the trends? How do you begin to build a plan to act upon any of that information and so forth? So that's
if you, on 4.2.2, and by the way, this is just like you're in like my space of just like, this is just awesome. That's, I'm just going, because we're talking about this line, there's one word in here, 4.2.2, internal customers. Like the fact that we're thinking about the users of it, our staff primarily, or our internal customers. And I joke that, you know, like if someone in the maintenance department says, I'm just here for kids, you know, are they in the right job? You know, because they're really here for adults. You know, we're trying to make the learning environment better for adults. But this is phenomenal to be developing listening tools. And you're right about being very careful about the way that you word the questions and all. Because I mean, what popped to my mind was, hello, we're in charge of your electricity. We're doing a good job, right? Like, that's not a good way to ask that question, right? Because I'm thinking, oh, it's going to get hot in here tomorrow, if I don't say. So you got to be real careful about truly getting back to the trust, right? That's right. We can't get better if we don't get honest with that.
Right.
That's why we get honest with that.
And getting them to open up to that vulnerability of asking the question, right? Because you can't ignore it if you've received feedback that demands there be some change or some action or something.
So I love that you're saying go slow because you want to make sure that you've got the trust built to do the continuous improvement, right? We've got to, there's a balance in that.
Correct. And that's for any of our areas, including the safety and security area. And in safety and security is going to be kind of a double thing, because our 3-year audit also, it doesn't require it, but it's a best practice to include information from various stakeholders, to include students about how they feel in terms of just emergency operations, safety and security. Not the well-being piece from a counseling and psychology standpoint, but the other pieces of it. And that fits into that 3-year audit that we submit to the state. So those questions are almost kind of scripted for us in that particular arena, but everything else is kind of free and open for us to kind of work on and figure out in the initial year, what is it we want to know? We can't ask everything about everything. So what is going to give us the biggest bang for our buck is where we're occupying people's time telling us and informing us.
This is not to boil the ocean strategic action, is what you're saying, okay?
Your other things going on.
Okay, I think 4.2.3, building knowledge and capacity in district staff. We made some changes here this year, because last year this was nearly 100% focused finance, you know, and educating our staff on the finance piece, which is still in there. If you look at, you know, the outcome measures, you know, there's still some of those pieces, and there's a couple of those outcome measures that are strictly, you know, on the finance side. But as conversations kind of evolved, it was kind of like, well, we really want to educate all of our staff. We really want to educate, you know, more than obviously just the finance staff. And so we added the progress measure in there, basically to, you know, basically review, monitor the schedules, the agendas, the things that are going on in the district, and try to use our district leadership team and other opportunities to build on the knowledge that those groups of people have in regard to the things that are really going on in the district. So that was one of the big changes that we made in there. And then, you know, like I said, there's a couple pieces in there, working with our budget managers, working with our bookkeepers within each campus and department, educating them, strengthening them, growing them, so that they become more in tune to the financial side of things. And then as I had conversations with my team, you know, it was like, you know, we want to build our team as well on the financial side of things too. And so, you know, TASBO, for example, has, you know, a great certification program for school business folks. And so one of the things that we would focus on and looking at is, you know, trying to get our staff within our department to, you know, seek after those certifications. Because if my staff understands it a whole lot more, then they can go out to the campuses and departments, and they can relay that education out to those folks even more. And I think it strengthens that relationship, it strengthens that connection between the finance department and, you know, campuses and departments.
So, this next one in 4.2.4 has been moved here. It was up in priority 1 under safety and well-being, and it has just kind of felt a little bit out of place to most people for a while. And so we've moved it here under effective and efficient operations. It's still fairly similar to what it was with some nuanced changes because so much of this is mandated. And this is the area where we are constantly looking at and refining our systems that allow us, both as human beings as well as our systems that we utilize, to be as effective and as prepared as possible for emergency situations, whatever the crisis is for the moment. And there are, like I said, there are a number of things that are simply mandated that have to happen. So you see a lot of things that say annually on them as far as the outcome measures are concerned, with some refinement of things. So we know, for example, that as to the emergency operations plan that we've been working on, Alan was able to tell a story that we've had a wonderful and robust plan that's been approved by the state every year. This last go-round, they said we had 5 deficiencies, to which he was completely unhappy about that response. Takes great pride in it. And he asked for specific feedback, and then he said, all of the things you just listed are in the plan. Let me show you where they are. Well, what we've learned is that on that end, they have a script. And they want information basically in a format where they can check the box. So they're not really reading these things. So he's reformatted everything so it fits their box. Okay? So you see different format here, and that translates into the campus plans, but we can't afford to have a state agency suggesting that we were deficient when nothing could be further from the truth. And they ultimately wrote back and said, oh yeah, thank you, Baird, all that is wonderful, and move on. And after, you know, he had heart failure over that weekend when he got the email and so forth. So you see some of that. You see here, of course, the Safety and Security Committee that's mandated, and the involvement that they have in constantly being a part of looking at different aspects of the plan overall in the district itself. We know we have the mandated drills that we then go beyond because we do all of them at the beginning of the first 2 weeks of school, so everybody's prepared, and then at the beginning of the first semester and then throughout those semesters. So you see a lot of repetition there. 2 things that are different. We've lived a year with our school resource officers in every campus now, which was really new for our elementary campuses primarily, but we also received different folks in those roles at our secondary campuses. So they've been with us, we've been with them for a year. Through that, we learned some areas where we needed to provide them with a little bit more training and understanding of what it is to work in a school with students. So that's been incorporated into what the refresher training will be this year with school resource officers.
Pressure training? Is that what you just said?
Did I say pressure treating?
Refresher.
Refresher.
Oh!
Stop it.
Don't think
Not
so.
pressure training, no.
She's seeing a headlock.
They do enough of that already, yeah.
Oh, refresher.
Refresher, yes. So for those that have been here, and then there are, I guess there are one or two that may be new to us as the cities are making some changes there. So more training for our school resource officers as they go into year 2 now under this different format. And the other big one really is our limited knowledge and understanding of what the TEA vulnerability assessments are going to be. We just continue to monitor and remind our staff that this is coming. This is going to be the next wave of how they assess district preparedness for things, in particular in the area of our students and our staff members that have disabilities. How have you really incorporated them into your plan so that in a moment of an emergency, they too are taken care of, they're not left behind, they're not forgotten. And so that's been a very specific and conscious effort. They've had those things incorporated into the campus plans. This is something we're specifically looking at. We told them in the spring semester, we reminded them again as recently as yesterday, they're going to come test you. The scenario they're going to throw out is going to test this kind of area. So we've got to be completely prepared for that. And you may have long-term disabilities that you've been dealing with. You know that student. You may have a temporary situation that is present among your staff as an example. And what have you done to shore that up for the 6 weeks that Mrs. Jones is on a scooter and is not going to be as ambulatory as she would be in caring for her students if we now have to evacuate the building? What's the plan for that? How are we doing that? So that's a big piece of it for this. Any questions before I move to 4.3?
I do. I know we have new people. Was there anybody, because just like it was new for the elementary people, were there any SROs that, obviously it was their first time to be in elementary as well, were there any of them that said, no, this isn't for me, and just chose to do something else? Or did they enjoy, the job description fit what they were actually doing?
Yes, not for elementary, no. Really not in our SROs. We had one secondary that really just didn't pan out the way that I think anybody had necessarily hoped. I would say there was a sergeant that probably fit more.
So you would say most of them are
changed.
coming back for year 2?
Yes.
So we have one retire, right?
Yes, we had the one retiree, Moses. Yeah. But that was mid-year.
Somebody took a more tactical role in a different department and,
So we have how many?
But not because they didn't
they
love
loved
it.
it. I loved it. It was just a young gun. I was like, still ready to get
Keep
out there.
moving up the notches of the career.
Yeah.
Not because he didn't like it.
No, he loved it. Yeah.
So how many new SROs do you think we're having this year?
I know of at least 2. I mean, I didn't really finish figuring out Caldwell Heritage, so that for me counts like 3.
But so the person that is finished the year at Caldwell Heritage is coming back?
They were on a rotation.
That was a rotation.
They were on a
Oh, new
rotation of
Yeah,
people
they'll
filling.
have
it.
a
We have a-
full-time
Yes, a
dedicated.
new person specifically for Caldwell Heritage.
Thank you.
Yes. So 4.3, of course, a lot of the stuff that was in here previously had to do with just stakeholder committee and moving towards the bond, which was kind of the here and now at that point, and now really where we are. That's not on here is the implementation of that bond program. That's a huge thing that we're undertaking now. But really in terms of the scorecard and planning for the future, it is now about a different committee, smaller committee, part of which the board will be a part of, that will look at a lot of aspects in terms of the district, but is thinking out much further, futuristically, 5 and 10 years. What is the district going to look like? What are the programs that it has now? What are the programs that it's going to need? What are the changes in enrollment? It involves evaluating the facilities in a way that looks at really how they're currently utilized, when they were built, what did they support. You may know from an industry piece of information from the CTE standpoint that they really need to be certified in something else that your facility right now will not allow you to even think about doing. I'll just take a wild example of something maybe in aviation. And we don't have a way that would allow for that. I don't know that that's a big ticket, a big interest item. That would be an example of an area. And so there's that assessment now in a different capacity, looks out futuristically in line with your educational program. So it's bringing all those pieces together that we will embark upon early. So the first semester is really about identifying the who and kind of working on tentative agendas for what those committee meetings would look like. And then in the second semester, kicking that off, if you will, with data and information.
That aviation thing?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
That would be cool.
As long as I don't have to build the runway.
There's a lot
But
There's a lot of
But yeah.
Cape Cod heritage that do that.
Sure.
They go to aviation.
Well, for sure, drone piloting right now is a thing. It's an industry. Somebody that I know is just kicked off an incredible career with a railway, and she's a drone pilot operator, and she's just having a blast.
Secret Service would probably be hiring for them.
That's very
Yeah.
true.
So I wanted to, first of all, it's something that I heard a couple of times. It's just that, we're at a point where things are going to get a little slower. And I appreciate you saying how quickly we got this stuff up and going, because we really did. And I appreciate, I tell Brad this all the time, I appreciate how much work y'all have put into this, because there was a sense of urgency. We needed to kind of get going and kick ourselves in the butt. And I'm very appreciative of that. But we're now kind of at the point where some of this stuff is going to, take a little bit longer. And I think that there's appreciation in that too. We want to do things right and do it well and not just fast, fast, fast. And so I wanted to commend you all on that. I wanted to commend our board on the fact that we have committed ourselves to providing resources that are going to help you do these things so that we can do them well, do them quickly, do them effectively, and all of those things. So, I wanted to just kind of pat ourselves on the back for that, because that has been evident. I wanted to say, Kyle, to you, just in a public format, because you do a lot of, you have a lot of hats that you wear, and the fact that you're generating revenue for us, I am very, very, very appreciative of, and you have taken on roles that are beyond, your scope, but I'm just very, very appreciative of the fact that you jump in and you give of yourself in a large way, and it's going to benefit us also. So I just feel like it's important that with this finance and all of these things, that all of us are playing such a, we're just in different times, but every single one of you do multiple things, multiple capacities and hats. And I love the cascading thing, because it literally is a partnership that we're literally working together to move, things forward. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of
And in fact, the cascading really is just starting in some ways, right? Now,
Yes.
so just wait, because that's going to be,
Well,
yesterday.
They just wrote.
So I think Mola is going to kind of, segue into that for a brief bit, right?
I wasn't sure if we'd get there, so I didn't pass out documents ahead of time.
I think it's because the board president brought up cascading,
Yeah.
and I think it's a really good time
So while
to
those
show,
are
yeah.
being passed out, just as kind of to help set the stage, so we had our district leadership day yesterday that includes all of 18 plus campus-based leaders. What we just did with you in going through the updates to the priority scorecard, we did with our leaders in breakout groups by priority, and we sought feedback from them around that information. So we're just now at the point of going through that. The overwhelming and just a quick glance of that feedback was how much it helped them understand everybody's role, and in particular their role in working and striving toward reaching the outcomes that have been designated. And then we have identified edits that need to be made in this.
Yes.
There are errors that we will be correcting in the process, so we are aware of those as well, and they will be.
Team trust, continuous improvement.
And
Yeah.
then, in addition to sharing with the district leadership yesterday, our accomplishments of 23-24 and our updates for 24-25, Dr. McMullen rolled out kind of the start of that cascading scorecard. What's important to also realize though, this is getting kind of long. And that's something that we've gotten questions about, a little bit of feedback. It is possible as we move forward with our cascading scorecards, some of the specificity that we now have represented in the district scorecard will kind of collapse into the cascading scorecard. So that'll continue to be part of that cycle as we review. And I'll let you talk about the cascading.
Sure. So yesterday, as we presented at leadership team, just trying to give everybody a picture of what's to come. Because when you say cascading scorecard, all the big huge breaths and anxiety, or what is this giant thing? Because people know the work that was put in for the district scorecard, so they know that's a huge undertaking. So we really tried to emphasize that the cascading scorecards are where you see your day-to-day work and outcomes playing out for the district reaching their goals. Because you may sit through the presentation yesterday about the district scorecard and go, well, there's a lot that I do that's never mentioned on the scorecard, or it's only mentioned this tiny bit. So that's where the cascading scorecards really help everybody see themselves and the work of the district. And so we are starting with each chief, and then Nicole and her department having their own cascading scorecard, and each campus. So each campus principals, so all 20 of our principals will have a cascading scorecard, and then all of our chiefs will have one for their areas. So that is the first level of the cascade. Our campus principals should be very familiar with this process because this is the campus improvement plans. And so it will help them see how their campus improvement plans that they've been forever and ever align with the district scorecard. So we provided a template, and I think we passed out a template to y'all. It's really teeny tiny. It's just a visual. You need your magnifying glass to read the words, but just to show the format that we will be using for the cascading
So
scorecard.
everything to the right and to the left
It's the district.
is
Yeah.
the thing we've been going through.
Yep.
And they own, so I want to, I just want to say, like, this is it's best practice that Robert Marzano identified and others. The concept is defined autonomy. So you're trying to give boss, mid-level leaders autonomy. That's desirable, right? They want autonomy, but autonomy can mean a lot of different things. When I got to Crowley, and my predecessor had been there 51 years, and he didn't know exactly how many campuses we had, that was a level of autonomy that, well, we had 23 independent school districts, basically, that all just happened to fall within the boundary. So, but I'm going to tell you, there was some benefit to that autonomy, some benefit, because the principals just, they just did the job. But what was interesting with me just using it as a case study, all of them craved direction. They said it was good, it was fun for a little while. We just want to know what are we right, like what are we. So the beauty to this is we're leaving some autonomy, but it's got to stay consistent with the stuff to the left and with the stuff to the right? And so I don't know.
Was that exciting to them? Because I'm just curious as to, because to me, that to me is cool, that when you see all of these things, these
I think
parts
the
come together.
alignment of the campus improvement plans that they put so much work into, and the visual alignment to the district scorecard is like, oh, it was that it all comes together.
Yeah.
And it all
Yeah.
makes sense. Because all we did was have 3 columns
Right.
kind of in the sandwich of the scorecard. So we start with the district scorecard priority and performance objectives. And then we left the key strategic action as kind of that placeholder framework of here's where the district is going. Then added the 3 columns for the campus or department, key strategic actions, performance, progress measures, and outcome measures. But then the end of that sandwich is the district outcomes, because all of your work in the middle needs to be aligned and rooted in the work and the goals of the district. So I think the part that I'm most excited about is on the backside, which is our development and refining phase, which we're going to do over the fall of 2024. So rather than saying, hey, go, we've given you the template, good luck, we'll see you in September, it needs to be finished, we are taking it one priority for each month and allowing them time to go back to their campuses and departments, brainstorm, they'll bring it to our monthly A-team meetings, we'll go through feedback and refinement rounds, we'll go back and make updates and then bring a new priority the next month. So that by the end of the fall semester, each campus and chief will have a complete cascade scorecard.
You know, it seems to me that they're going to be, the campuses in particular, will be comfortable with priority one, right? Because, you know, that's where they've been. And I think they'll be pretty comfortable with priority two because we're constantly checking on our staff. I think sometimes, and this is just me, I'm not talking about your district, but I think sometimes they think that the community is her job, right? Or, you know, like, or someone else. So just seeing that they know like, you're really connected to our external customers. And then I'm going to go back to a comment made. Your budget managers are out in the field. And if they get a perception of this priority four, like this good data starts with me, good budgeting starts with me, you're going to clean it all up by the end, right? But the best case scenario is it's a lot cleaner at the front end of the pipeline, so there's less of the stuff you do to make sure we win the award at the end. So that to me, and I like that you're taking it a piece at a time, because if you started with, if you're at a cascade priority four, on day one, you might blow the whole thing out, right? And let it get the confidence out. So I think that's awesome.
So I think it allows, it's a collective understanding, but it's a shared ownership. You know, it's like, we need to have business managers all throughout the district so that we're ensuring financial efficiency, compliance, all the things. But in order for us to meet our performance objectives, or, you know, and hopefully exceed them, we have to have shared ownership in this, and everybody understands that there's that one direction, right?
I mean, I'm not saying that here, I haven't said statewide, and I'll continue to say statewide, to train a principal in finance and just make them memorize the Teams code one more time to get a master's degree is ludicrous. Like, it should be one piece of paper that's laminated that I just carry with me, don't even do one class on it, much less 8. So we've got to remember, they're not coming out. I think a master's of school administration should be half MBA, half school administration. We don't need more reading classes, more psychology classes, more Teams classes. We need business management. We're about to run an enterprise. And your high schools, that's a, what, $20 million enterprise? I mean, all in, maybe more? In high school? Yeah, like that's that's bigger than most cases.
Small town.
Well, I mean, your high school is bigger than most cases. And we can't throw a rock and not get an MBA, you know. So anyway, my point is, I just think so this concept of them seeing themselves, and you were talking earlier about them viewing themselves as budget managers and moving to get better at this knowledge and learning, I think it's just awesome. And that won't pay dividends immediately, as you well know. But that's legacy work. You're laying groundwork from now on. Yeah, a lot of this is like now, but then a lot of this is get ready, we're getting it ready. And I love the fact that George saying it's going to go long, we've got to go slow. And I hadn't heard that really. Like I get to pop in on the Zoom. I'm really hearing this. When we got in it, we realized we need to slow down and make sure we got that right. That's because they want to go long. And I know you said last summer, I remember you said on the gas pedal. And that was good. Like that energy needed to be in the room. But then you're also accepting today that you realize they're peeling it back and they're trying to get it right.
Good.
That's what I heard you say, that you know that you're at the bottom. But you're saying that's good, that you're just trying to get it right. Is there anything you want to stay on the gas pedal on? Or what do you like?
We're at a part right now where we have to get the stuff implemented, and, you know, like, you're kind of at a, I don't want to say stall, because we don't stall, but, you know, you're having to see how things kind of play out.
There's one full cycle that's been completed. Is that fair, not tactical? So, yeah, like you all went through, we weren't, but you've gone through one full cycle. So where we are, is we're back at the plan, or the act. We're kind of back at the act, right? We did plan, do, check, and now we're back at the act. So you're right, like we're back there, and we're recalibrating and then replanning, and then here we go.
Right.
Here comes another side.
Greg, the cascading scorecard, I really think that fits and hopefully remedies something that I think has been a decades-long forever problem. When I was in the classroom, we had this mentality that you guys at the admin building really had no real connection or knowledge of what we were doing in the classroom. And so it would be like, yeah, we're just going to listen to whatever they're rolling out, and then we're going to go like actually teach kids.
Those are the words. Teach the kids.
Yeah, and actually get them taught. So I know none of you were here at the admin building. Actually, I think Paul
I was.
Yeah. No, but actually, what I'm talking about really all leans heavily on priority one. And from my viewpoint, priority one is the product we deliver. I
It's
mean,
our
priority
mission.
one is,
It's the mission.
sorry Sheila, it's all on you, and all the rest of this is support.
You got help,
Saying, right? And all the rest of this is to support the delivery of the product in
Yep.
priority one. Not that it is absolutely important, it has to be in place, and I think it's also very important that our campus principals that we are giving autonomy to in so many ways understand, like you're talking about, they're practically getting an MBA. They need to understand how the budget works. They've got to understand all of that. But the meat and potatoes of what we do and what we deliver is priority one.
Yep.
And it's so hard because that's so, gosh, it's like trying to hold water in your hands. I mean, you've got 13,500 kids, and what they do on any given day is what gives the result for our scorecard. And you just can't control all of that.
I can't help but add this because what I'm hearing today that really was refreshing to me is it's not static. So it's loops, listening and feedback and loops and feedback, because it is, you said water in your hand. I've heard it described as nailing jello to a wall. You know, that you have to have these feedback loops built in, or it's just top down, right?
And that leads to one other thing I wanted to say in all of this, that I said this a year ago, and got, there were some people that said, oh, she doesn't really mean that. No, I really mean that. I really appreciate, particularly, it shows up in priority one, that we are willing to share our deficiencies.
Yeah.
We have to be able to do that. I don't want things sugar-coated. And we had some wins in priority one, but we had some places that we did not do what we had hoped. And so that's okay, as long as we're looking at the places where you talked about the loop, where we didn't do what we had hoped, and we're changing our strategies that are down there in the weeds. What are we doing? What are we going to do differently? Because that definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So we can't do the same thing we did last year and think it's going to yield something different. What adjustments are being made? That's a rhetorical question.
But don't you think iReady is going to help a lot of this?
That's what.
iReady, implementation of mastery prep, those are responses to what we know our needs. So we absolutely know and believe that's addressing needs in those deficient areas that we've had and going to support the outcomes that we're seeking.
I'm happy. Please, y'all are all knocking it out of the park.
Well, I mean, I want to, I don't know how good the audio is on this. Perhaps not good. Yeah. But dude, we're, thank you for saying that. I get quieter and quieter as the meeting goes on. We're naming this, I can't remember if I named this last year, a strategic roundtable, but this concept of what we're doing with the tactical team and the strategic team, we're now calling a strategic roundtable. And then we're talking to boards about, how often do you want to do this? And I'm not kidding when I say this. If the quality is not good, I want to work on it.
Turn it up.
Yeah, because what just happened in the last 2 hours is the picture in my mind, and I'm not just saying this, of what we want other districts to do. Like, this was it. Was it perfect? No. Did someone occasionally misspeak? Yeah. Did someone have to say do this? Or, but the concept, the gestalt of what just happened is what. So anyway, I want this. Because I want to share it when they're saying, what do you mean strategic round? Like, watch this.
Oh, you're talking about that?
I'm talking about the recording of what you all just did.
Make sure you put your lipstick on.
Like this is the picture we have in our mind. And I heard good ideas, and I bet other tactical members are thinking, where does that fit on the scorecard? You know, like we heard something, like where does that best fit? Anyway, I'm bragging.
So this leads
good.
to a little bit of and so I wanted some feedback from the board on this. So I'm just going to give my 2 cents. I said this to you the other day, and to be thinking to help us problem solve through this. But so AJ, so in our meetings, I have felt like, I mean, the information that we're getting in the scorecard is great. I mean, it really is good. But I think like the last meeting, particularly, it was so long, and I don't know if that was so long, it's just that we had the mandatory state stuff that we had to hear, but then it rolled over, it's so much information that I don't, so I'm trying to figure out what information do we need? Do we need the detailed, do we want to get into the really fine-tuned things, or how overview do we want to be? And I want you to,
Are you talking about the strategic plan?
well, like when they're presenting.
So the priority reports each month in the board meeting.
Yeah. So you're asking, is it too detailed? Is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
I am.
Because sometimes it's too long, it feels too long.
Yeah.
But is it because the scorecard report's too long, or because the whole meeting and the agenda
Yeah, I don't know.
is?
That's why I thought I wanted to just bring that up.
What y'all are in a good spot here. So what some districts are doing, in light of what we just did, they're, and any combination of this is okay, but they're engineering a scorecard report that's more of a community update, tighter and quicker, and then they're doing this, what we just did, BOY, MOY, EOY. So beginning of year, middle of year, end of year, 2-hour workshop. Do you see what I'm saying? And then the
So you'd prefer an additional meeting workshop?
We don't really have a lot of workshops, so I don't mind
it's a good way to run through, and there's things that might be going on your regular agenda that are going to get teased out in a scorecard update that it'd be easier just to cover it at the workshop.
I think we have some input in there.
Oh, no, we were just agreeing with Kathy's comment around workshops, and then when you're ready for us.
The beginning and middle of it, y'all like that?
A BOY, I heard we'll share that in September earlier. Was that just when it's going to be on the regular agenda?
Well, it's just a priority report.
Yeah.
Priority report, right. And see, that took a couple hours, but there was a lot of trying to spotlight the change. I mean, maybe 90 minutes you could run through, just like a status report. And if you get in a system, there's not, between BOY, MOY, and EOY, I think y'all will get in a rhythm where you don't have to repeat stuff. Just get to the stuff that changed, and here's the data.
Well, I think there's a benefit with the community too. If it's shorter, more concise, more digestible, that just benefits everybody.
So then anybody who wants all the details just goes on and watches this.
Which is this, or nothing sits down.
Okay, so we still do the priority reports at the board meeting. We just make it condensed, short.
15
Sometimes,
minutes.
sometimes it already is condensed, but make it more like 15 or 20 minutes.
Well, I know that's what districts are saying is one. Now, there is the option of saying we're not going to do that at the regular meeting. We're going to hold the 3 workshops, and that's enough. I mean, if the community wants to tune in, you don't have to do both.
What do y'all think?
I like the DOI, MOI, EOI.
I'm going to go back to what Mary said. I remember, obviously, that it was always, they have whatever they say to do, that's what we're going to do in the classroom. So I kind of like the fact that we're they're telling us what's going on in the classroom, because then as a teacher, you know what you're doing is, working, or, I like the feedback in the meeting, but I understand the details like this, we need to do it. If it's just 3 times a year, I'm good with that too, beginning, middle, and end.
So just for clarity for my own self, so to me, it's not a workshop before the meeting. It's an additional,
It's
so
like a
it's a
reserve meeting or
special,
something?
yeah, so it'd be a special
like
meeting. Because to me, part of my issue is just the amount of information to process.
Yeah.
So adding it to the front, that doesn't help me,
Right.
because it's
Just
a
the
lot
good
to
thing about
process.
today is this was the bulk of everything.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
To your point.
Right.
Like, this is what you were thinking about. It's
No,
just-
I like this, and I can see a lot of benefits from that. I mean, the bulk of information, because at some point, when you have a 6-hour board meeting, your brain is too tired to accurately process. And then the other thing is, this dawned on me as Lisa said this, I said y'all get assigned a board meeting that's when you're doing that priority report. That may or may not be, and it's once a year. That may or may not be the best time for you to report on something. I'm sure y'all try to manage that. Anyway, if we had kind of an update, beginning, middle, end on everything across the board, it makes more sense to me, is what I'm trying to say, instead of hearing an update or a report one.
See, I would suggest also we could do that from a finance perspective, especially as we run up to the actual, trying to pass a new budget, is some workshops so that we are walking and seeing, we know where things are. I think that would be very helpful. But to everybody's point, and especially as the most recent, addition to the board, it's very difficult to digest and try not to be there all night asking, lots of questions. So something like that would be really beneficial.
So let me just say this, as a team, we're very grateful that you guys would schedule this during the business day. I mean, this is like awesome for us, and so one thing that I'd like to ask is if it's possible if we're gonna do that, if we're gonna add basically 3 more of those meetings, if we could maybe start it like at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we could go say 8 to 10, that would be very beneficial for us, because it's one less night that,
I mean,
or 9, I don't care, like, oh, okay,
I
but,
just heard
so
tacos and
because,
coffee is what I just heard.
listen, I want y'all to, you think about all the things that we're doing with leadership, GCISD, or these other opportunities where we're connecting and engaging with our community, that's going to be outside of the workday. And so we're adding some more stuff, and so I guess that's my ask, if we can.
You need to ask them.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be at 8 in the morning or something,
If we
but
can
I'll be
do
there whenever.
a lunch thing, that
We-
would probably be easier for us at work.
we certainly can. We can do whatever's conducive for you guys, lunch, but
And everyone can eat.
if it could be during the business day like that, that would be, I think, beneficial. And if it's not, y'all tell me, and Fred.
Ask AJ and Yaya.
AJ, do you have thoughts on that?
What kind of holidays do you guys work that I don't? I know Veterans Day I'm off. It's been on a Veterans Day. You guys work on Columbus Day?
Well, we have like PD days on President's Day. That's next year, what, February 17th. Anyway, so yes, we can look at.
Save
You
my
should
time off.
probably look at the days perhaps that need work
Yeah,
on because we're on a 233.
correct.
That are not professional development days, because we're all out with our people on professional
Yeah.
development days, but on the days that we're here,
Yeah.
that the rest of the staff has a holiday. And so that may be the best option, because then we're not distracted by what's going on in
Correct.
professional development, and then it's
I-
not
that's
taking away.
Yeah, but
If that's possible, I don't know.
Because what we're trying to pause everybody and focus. That's the reason we're setting it aside, right? And we're seeing y'all having to like focus on the work on this thing, right?
Does this add more, is what, because part of my, okay, so I hear what you're saying on the workshop thing. So this is just my personal opinion on, my first year, we did a lot of workshops prior to, and I didn't really understand the point of you know, if you did a workshop, then, I mean, why not just throw it in the meeting? I mean, you know what I mean, like it's unless you're doing it on separate days. And so then it becomes, you know, we don't want this thing to become, we want it to be duplicatable. So we're trying to get, where we can get the most amount of information in the most efficient timeframe. And so I'm not suggesting, I mean, maybe a workshop is the way to go.
I think if you take out the monthly resident, that, if you just do the 3 a year, that feels, does that feel even?
Well,
to
she's
you all?
saying the finance, like doing finance workshops in addition to, but I'm just trying to figure out.
Why are we doing it at the board meeting? Are we doing it for the purpose of us or for the community? That's my question.
Yeah, my response is both, but really, I think for the next 24 months, it's more about you guys calibrating.
I think we
Right.
get much more out of this than the meeting, in my opinion.
Because you're calibrating, and then you're going to get in a rhythm where we get a lot of continuous improvement cycles. I think back to the lunch concept, I could see these lasting 60 minutes.
If it's not in the budget, we can pack our own lunches.
Well,
No, but I don't think 2 hours.
I'm saying I think it's going to get to an hour eventually when y'all gone through this.
I don't want any more work for them.
Right, right.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm agreeing. I think preparing for monthly scorecard reports is pretty challenging.
Wouldn't this
Okay.
3 times a year be better than every single
That's
month?
a good
Yes,
way
and
to
I
ask
just,
it.
I know somebody kept saying like 3 more of these, but if you take it to last year, we did one in the summer, we did one middle of year, we're doing one in the summer. Now, to me, we're really only adding an end of year one in, correct? So it's not, it wouldn't have been 3 more than what y'all,
That's a great point.
we have done last year, because
Okay.
we did one of these last summer, we did
Yeah.
one in January.
Yeah.
Really, you're looking at trying to find like that sweet spot.
Okay,
of
so then we go back
Um,
to what do you want them to present? Are they not going to present anything in the scorecard?
When?
Well,
At our board meeting?
for board meeting, I mean, again, this is just my personal opinion, so y'all throw it, but I think they're beneficial for the community. Because when, you know, you can hear the success that we're having, things that we're implementing, things that aren't, I mean, we still need to have that accountability.
Okay,
I mean, that's just my own personal
The
viewpoint.
edited, the.
More concise, yeah, a little bit
More
more.
concise bullets.
And you don't have to make sure that you cover every
Or
single
what number?
performance objective or every single key strategic action in a year. You would do what is timely and appropriate and important. But I think it is important that we include it in our
But
meetings.
you've
This
done
is
this for a long time.
Yeah,
So tell
well,
us-
if you want to tighten that up, it's 1.1, here's 2 strings from this last 60 days, and here's 2 things we're really working on. Right, and then
Very
1.2, here's 2 strings,
Yeah.
we're going to celebrate 2 strings, something that happened, this is not limited to 2, but y'all get my point. And then here are 2 things we're working on.
I mean, and not to, but like, the academic stuff to me is high priority, you know, and if our job is to oversee, it's hard to know, and that's where, you know, like, that's part of the deal, is we need to, like, we don't really see academic performance in what we just did today. Do you know what I'm saying? Where, that's part of, like, how are we doing? Where are we in some of this stuff? So I think that that's extremely valuable, and I personally need it. You know, finance, same thing. We're trying to get our budget down to, I mean, so like, you can't be so high level that we don't,
Yeah,
you know, the information.
The challenge right now is, and today's a good example, a lot of today were words about the description of the measure that's emerging.
Right.
Okay, once that's systematic, we're just looking at the data.
Yeah, what
Right.
this would turn into in the middle of your check would be almost like what we started with on the 23-24 accomplishments, but we'd be doing that for the here and now. So we would be reporting on, this is what we've accomplished in this outcome, and we would highlight outcomes that align to current work. So we wouldn't report on all of them at each of those beginning, middle, and end of year. We would report on it if it made sense that we had received new information in between your last report.
I'm not extending on that. If you get in a rhythm, it's just like a real quick, what's working well, and then here's what schools are bad at. So if you think about data as red, yellow, or green. So green means we're hitting our target, yellow means we're right on the bubble, red means we've got a problem. And the limited, what we're used to doing as school administrators and almost trained to do is just talk about all the green stuff until we're out of time. I'm just saying, like, that's what, and so like, oh, we're out of time, well, we didn't get the 4 red, well, we'll do it next time. And never. So what we're saying is let's recalibrate and let's quickly celebrate kind of the collection of all the green, and let's get down to business on why is it still red? And I just think that's what this will become. Already here and emerging, they're already they're pointing at the stuff that needs improvement. So it gets shorter, in my opinion, if you get in that rhythm of the stuff we need to
do we want to do a middle, beginning, middle, end? So we're just adding one?
My only question about the end and the beginning is like scores. Like right now, we're in this, we have preliminary, I just don't want to say, let's do one in May and do one in July when.
No,
there are things that we've been doing in the priority updates that, in my opinion, still need to be board agenda items.
Okay.
Even if it's not mandated at that time, that it is current information that we need.
So suck it up, Buttercup is it also, I mean, that's an okay thing. I mean, it is, it's okay. I mean,
I do think that.
I was just bringing it up.
What we do, I think it
This
can
is
be
your
short.
head for it.
Okay.
In that we spend time making sure we consider our audience and we try to build the background information and present the data and tell you about the strengths and tell you about what we're going to do to improve any deficits that are identified. I think if we don't always try to explain everything in depth because we're teaching to someone in the community that may not know anything about it.
And to your point, there's so many things that we haven't been doing that are new. And so that's why, and that's what I said to Brad, because you can attest that I did say this, that it is kind of necessary here that we're doing these things, and this is what we're doing, and this is how we're checking it, and and all of that stuff is great. But I was just wondering if we're getting, like this next year, maybe we don't need those.
We need fewer words around the
things.
explanation. And Party 1, accountability information has come out, and here's what we've identified as strengths. Here's what we've identified as areas to work on.
Right. Okay.
So that's just an example in Priority 1 of how we can look at that monthly update a little differently, as long as
got these other venues.
So we will continue our monthly priority reports, but on the macro, and then we'll also incorporate these beginning, middle, and end of year.
Yeah, but let's talk about.
And I think we need to revisit the schedule because we've been doing 2 in 1 month.
Yeah.
It may be that now that we're gonna have beginning, middle, and end, we can truly downsize there and have 1.
Because you've got another opportunity to hear.
And like Mary said, not every single one necessarily even gets reported on at a board meeting every single year.
Right.
So,
Because some of them don't really require that. Yeah.
Right. And you're gonna hear the updates, especially if it's like, we do this, we've been continuing it, we're doing it, and so the goal is to annually blank.
Yeah.
And so then too, knowing when not every performance objective requires an annual, but would be every 2 years or every 3 years full presentation, because otherwise we're hitting it with you guys in these meetings.
So is it the length, like they got to be 45, 50 minutes and something like that? I was like trying to find out the exact target, because if we had Priority 1, Priority 2, Priority 3 present, then they add up. Is that the issue?
I don't, for today, were you asking about?
I guess I'm a little more curious too about what end of year means. Because to me, this felt like both closing out, end of, and
Okay,
beginning
you
of
asked
new.
that question a while ago.
So-
Let's pause there for a second. We got like 5 questions on the table.
Yeah.
And that's good, like, and there are a lot of good questions. So in moving forward, end of year truly would be some of this EOY data, right? Like end of year should be EOY. Now BOY, beginning of year, if you do, like it's almost the same time as EOY, right? It's what I think wasn't that the original question? And yeah, y'all should ask. If you went till September or October, do you have some of your preliminary data for the new year, either from surveys? I know from your pre-KK or your pre-assessment.
That would need to be October.
Okay, that's what-
October, we would have on the Columbus Day. A lot of the
Yeah,
beginning
why?
of year that.
Okay, so if you wait and if we operationally define BOY as October, because we have some BOY information, we've got some baseline information. MOY, it seems like to me, needs to be February because you've closed out all your mid-year assessments and you've got time to clean it all up. So that's October, February, and then whenever the right time is to do BOY, August, maybe July, August. So it's wonky, but I think if you think about it that way, it makes sense.
It almost like goes after this, like what a school calendar BOY is, because it's really not our BOY, it's our reporting on the BOY.
Correct.
So it's you're staggering them.
Right, and if you just did an end of your report in August, then really the only new beginning of your data you have is some of your preliminary pre-K, right? What else?
Yeah, so we're going to do already,
Okay.
so we'll have
So then
diagnostic information.
We just talked about that, thank you. So like that, this is your report on where we started the year. To me, that makes sense. Because there was a question about the screener earlier, right? While I was over there multitasking, trying to get ready for the next 30 minutes. Then October, is that enough time to report on? See,
October, February, and what?
October,
Summer.
February, and August.
Right,
I think
Well,
eventually we have to
July.
have, I don't want to see preliminary score, I'd like to see scores. If we're getting an end of year and seeing how we
Yeah,
progress, I'd like to try to see.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
October is this
Right.
new information. February would be all of the mid-year assessments, which there's, and the mid-year stuff. There's one from every priority, but there's a bunch in curriculum. And then end of year is like this outcomes, like what did we do at the end of the year, later.
But I definitely want to make sure, I know like on here, we have like, we won't get the final thing for STAR, we'll not even know in August and these scores. So I'd like to see final, I don't want to see.
Right, that's
This is where we're at, but we don't have the final.
okay, so the EOY 2025 would primarily be what you're talking about. That's what I'm saying, right? Like by that time, we'll have some, it's just summative data is what
So
we're
we're trying to figure out
So we get scores August 14th.
August. Yeah.
And that's consistent every
So
year.
like we had, like that's when you get ratings, that's where you get distinctions. We've had individual student scores. Now, some of that's not teased out for the ratings as far as kids that weren't ours. They're not in our snapshot day data that are into our accountability, but we're still focused on growing them. And they are our kids and
Right.
students, so.
It's almost like EOY September, EOY September, BOY October. But it kind of is.
Yeah.
Now, you could just do those in one meeting.
Yeah, but that's too long of a pause.
No, I think EOY, like, I feel like this July is an EOY, because when we get our accountability stuff, I have all the information to put that in context. Yeah. I have all the frame of reference. So when we get our accountability, and we're like, oh, well, yeah, that's because of this data that we got.
All the specific data.
And I think August is a really hard time to add something like this.
Well, there's so much going on. I mean, with the
This
start of school.
is so much
with
more effective because we're
Set the
all,
tax rate.
I know everybody's working, but I don't know, our brains had a breather.
There will still be, so for instance, this year, we will receive our official accountability results in August. At the August board meeting, that still really is a priority one update to share that publicly with the board and the community.
Right.
So I
that's-
think to Mary's point then, that leaves June or July, like a good point for us to do end of year, right? I mean, if we're gonna do that.
Even in October.
This time of the year, July.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Because we're gonna do a priority one all the time in August. I mean, that's just when we have it.
Yeah.
That's when we need to give that to our community anyway. I mean, so,
In October, anything that is not available in July can be part of the October also, right?
True, yeah.
Like anything
Yeah.
that came in
Distinction.
after.
Be a wrap up.
So really just more official.
The only thing I don't love, so like in this, we have the priority one update, and we've got, the different percentage scores, and then we have that it's continuing, because we don't got official, preliminary until August 16th. But when we look at some of these scores, we went, and if I'm reading it right, we went down in some of these scores. So like I want to, because I'd like to hash that out in where we,
what's the plan?
why we come up short when we're pushing so much and we're doing good work, but we're coming up short. You know what I mean? Like I want to know why we're coming up short, because at the end of the day, like our priority one is our.
And to me, that would be part of what happened in the end of year in July. Like this one, now that we're in this cycle, that would really be what we would have spent this time in. Here are some understandings that we have and providing the context around those updates.
So this isn't like our finance situation where, like the preliminary, like we're going to be pretty close to that score, right?
I want to say yes, but we're relying on TEA and how they
So we still don't know.
maneuver
And
our data.
that's for me, I'm not an educator in any way, but for me, that's, as a stakeholder, I just want to see, and know what we're doing.
You want to know.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with that. So that, like, for an end of year thing, that would be ideally for me, but that's just.
I think by having one in, that's almost making me feel like the one in October is a good time, because we know by October, we're going to have the final answer to that. We're going to have some preliminary of it in July, right?
But my only concern about that is once we don't have any say-so over when everything is pushed out
Correct.
and it becomes public and talked about and
No, you're right. Yeah.
so I do not feel like we can wait till October.
No, I'm
to-
sorry. I'm thinking in addition to what you were saying, we've got to be timely with when accountability stuff comes up. But if we want to have a deeper conversation, it might not be in that board meeting, it might be in October.
Okay,
Well,
yes.
You see, we're just going to push it out and let everybody have it.
So I mean, this is just getting complicated. To me, it's like, do we need to just suck it up and do it the way that we've been doing it? Because it's fine. I mean, it really is, and the information's great. I mean, it really is. Because to AJ's point, some of the, we're wanting to see the results and see how, and what does that mean? And how, when it just kind of gives you like, are we going down the right path? Do we need to adjust? Do we need to pivot? I mean, those things, and maybe, it's great for the community to hear. I was just tossing out, I was just throwing something out there. That's all. Right.
What do y'all think
Time on the
is-
board meeting, yeah, at the
How
board
long?
meeting.
And
And y'all, I think my other board members because I was thinking about that question, to chime in, but I feel like maybe for the scorecard reports, plural, to not be more than 45 minutes.
Yeah, I would think that.
I don't want to, it's hard to sit to a 45 or 50-minute scorecard report and then, oh gosh, but we've got another one.
Right.
So if you're,
And is your goal that with questions too?
Yeah.
So really our presentations need to
30.
be 30
Yeah.
total? And I'm talking about like the two together?
I would
but-
say 30 to 40 minutes. I mean,
Right.
but if you're going to cover multiple areas, then y'all work together and make sure that your report can fit in that time. All of them added together. That's my thought.
Yeah. So I'm just so maybe we just, condense it some.
Like Nicole said, that you don't expect us to report on every single
Right.
thing
Right.
in a year, okay.
And I think that's key in when we originally set our priority report, we were very intentional around trying to make sure that every priority and key strategic action had to report out within the calendar year. I think if we revisit that with the mindset of we're going to do a comprehensive review in the summer, then we'll prioritize what really is going on that board update. So that will naturally condense it, I think, if we do that.
Because I will say that this as a whole, because we've all worked, we participated in this process, so, and so we're getting kind of, all the gears kind of going. And so I think that, maybe our role, we can lessen, maybe the knowledge part of every little, part of it, because we know that it's going in this right direction. We're getting it going, I don't know, again.
Comfortable with
Yes.
the direction.
Right.
That's what-
Right.
But when you're saying do one strategic roundtable a year, not 3, right?
Well, I really wasn't speaking to that. I think there is a way to shorten the board priority because we will revisit that calendar.
Right.
Because it's, as we've gone through a cycle of it, what we really tried to do in the first year, put too much on the priority reports on the monthly board agendas. Because we were trying to make sure that everything got reported out. If we're going to have maybe either 2 workshops a year or 3 workshops a year, you're going to hear about all the ones during that time. So I do think this is beneficial, but I think that thinking about where do we place those, October makes perfect sense for our beginning of year data. And then February for middle of year, and maybe not thinking of, it's like 1 in the summer, so it really is only adding, I think, 1 from where we've been. To me, then y'all get a comprehensive view quickly.
Yeah.
But like, here's the report out of where we are on data from this item.
Are y'all? Okay. Something else I wanted to just throw out there, and I think it's important that you hear from the board as a whole on this, so y'all chime in on this. But so we've got a lot of new things coming out with, cell phones and bullying policies and dress code and behavior discipline and all those things. And I think I think it's imperative that we toe the line on this stuff and then get this rolled out in a way that the expectations can be met and that that standards are upheld and that we're kind of raising the bar and raising the standard, so to speak. So just anybody want to chime in?
Are we stressing that to the proper people? Some people can do it, some people can't do it, but do they understand that is part of their job? Right?
I think it's important to understand what the change management protocols are for this stuff, right? Because if we're not effectively implementing the change, you're going to get hit or miss enforcement. So that's a really good point. And probably on the list of questions, what does that look like? Is it a same, you could expect to see the same thing every time when a policy is rolled out and communicated to the campuses? And to the earlier point, are the policies realistic enough to enforce? Because otherwise they're useless.
And enforce consistently across all campuses. Bible Heritage does something different than Grapevine High School. So you got kids that are getting different experiences at each, and it's not really what we should be having. It should be very, I'm late at Colleyville, I'm late at Grapevine. Same punishment structure. If I'm wearing clothes that I shouldn't be wearing at Grapevine, I should get the same thing that I would get if I was at Colleyville. It should be.
Reduction of variability between campuses is highly desirable and very challenging to achieve. That's my opinion.
Do you know why?
Because of, I think, this autonomy, this concept of design autonomy. And I do think, when we were talking about legacy work a while ago, I think the more you get campuses working, like in this defined autonomy format, they start thinking about this variability. that was my observation. Things that we weren't necessarily even working on, variability was getting reduced because everybody just felt like we were more one heartbeat in the district. But it's just that overarching desire of autonomy. I got my master's degree. I rather than we us.
And I don't think that's bad on the way that they address it, it has to be addressed. Okay, that's my concern. Is that,
Like, I've already gotten comments about dress code, for example. I've heard from kids that it's not going to be enforced, so like, why bother? And so if that's your mindset, I mean, you're not going to change, nothing's going to change because you don't think there's really any consequences. If, and just my personal viewpoint on it is that, there was a lot of energy and effort put towards, coming up with the new standard, that if we don't enforce the standard, then what's the point of having the standard at all? So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're going to have some form of accountability that, is happening at, campus levels. I mean, do you feel comfortable with whatever's upcoming?
I do want to touch on what Steve had said about change management, because when you think about all of the things that are being changed, like you do hit a threshold of being able to internalize and then produce on every single one of those changes and initiatives. And, and Diana, being in the classroom, like sometimes you're thinking about the lesson that you're about to teach and the kid walks by you with the shorts on. So sometimes it may be willful disobedience and then we're addressing that. Sometimes it slipped past me because I was addressing something different. But I do know that the effort that has been put into dress code specifically as far as getting the community input around it, explaining the standards for it, the expectation of enforcement, but I believe it takes every adult in the building, and it can't be on the shoulders of the 5 administrators at each high school campus, because that is all they will do, and that is not what's going to get us the priority 1 outcomes that we're seeking there.
Right.
And so my thing is it's about collective buy-in, and that's where we're really focusing this year on distributed leadership and empowering our staff to be leaders of those around them as well. And so putting some responsibility on our department learning leaders to address and have those hard conversations of the impact of my neighbor not enforcing it, and what can I do to help and support? Do we need reminders? Having accountability checks, we have added it on our walkthrough form of do we see consistency and implementation in district expectations and policies. So just showing that it's a focus. But I would be lying if I said I didn't have concerns about all the different changes and 100% fidelity to every single piece of it. I think it's way more important that we focus on our iReady 100% fidelity and implementation there. We're going to die on the hill, it's got to be that one. And then where our priorities following that. But I do think that the new policies give a very clear structure of expectations, which is very helpful in the enforcement.
Well, I'm sorry, Mary, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Andrew.
Well, I was just, part of what I was saying, it's not just into the classroom, right? Because, teachers need to teach. My thought was how we help and support our teachers teach is if they catch something or they do something that the administration, because they're ultimately the ones with the hammer, the admin. So if the teacher does something or sees something and calls it out or brings the admin into it, is there going to be support from admin to support that teacher across the board at each campus? Just because the teacher catches it doesn't mean that anything's going to be done about it, or that the kid even feels any fear to do it because maybe that one teacher caught it, but they might get sent to the principal or not, and something may or may not happen. And so just because I've heard from teachers that they catch something, they send that student down there, and that student comes right back 10 minutes later and nothing was done. And so that's what I want to make sure is so that they can focus on implementation of the iReady and teaching students and the focus needs to be on educating, not on what the kids are wearing or playing on their phones or anything else. It needs to be on education, but they can only do that if we get support from.
Yes, and we've worked hard to align our consequence matrices across levels so that it's consistent. And then also, part of that is a communication loop. Sometimes there's the perception that nothing happened when maybe the student never made it to the office. And they just said, oh, they just sent me back here. You know, so some of that's closing the communication loop of that teacher reaching out saying, hey, here's what I'm hearing, or here's the consequence that was assigned as they sent the student back to class. So I think some of it's communication and then some of it's that consistency.
Because you're right, we can't catch everything for every single person in the world, but just as long as those teachers are doing it, are getting that,
has to be there.
are getting, yeah, there has to be that.
That's what we're.
That's what I'm concerned about, yeah, that's
And as
what
long
I'm.
as the kid knows there is a good possibility they're going to get caught at least, and they're rolling the dice. I just all these policies that manage behavior that are coming down from us. I just want to make sure that you guys know it's not something that we just have like static moment come up with. This is stuff that we are getting so much feedback on from parents in the community and teachers in the community. I say this a lot. Democracy is messy. I mean, we are elected to represent the community. And then our role, as we talked about here, is oversight. Yet we're representing the community that lives in the weeds. And so it's really hard and I struggle with this all the time, like, oh, Mary, don't say that because you're getting in the weeds and that's their job. But that's what I'm hearing, and I'm elected to represent those people, represent our community. So I think these policies truly are what we feel, the ones we voted on, we haven't voted anyway. I think that what we feel that we are representing our community with fidelity, and both our teachers and our parents and all of our stakeholders. And all of these things, without a doubt, they are barriers to learning, particularly what we're seeing at second grade level. I mean, who cares about implementing iReady or anything else if you can't get Johnny to sit down and shut up for 1 second? So teacher management of the classroom is huge. And, the things I hear repeatedly are, I teach a STAR course. I am responsible. I'm going to be held responsible for my kids' STAR scores. Yet kids come in and I have to spend class time arguing with them to take their earbuds out and put their cell phone away so they can learn in my class, because they're like, oh, but Miss Smith, nobody else makes us do this. Why are you so mean? Why are you doing this? So that's why it has to be, there has to be a commitment across the board to implement that with fidelity. And talking about us all getting on, the same. I thought about what I love is that we're all pulling together. I think in rowing in the same direction, and it's important that we all, from the top to the bottom, are rowing in the same direction to create, to maintain. We have a district of excellence, but really, I want us to be more than excellent. I want us to be a district, of distinction. I want us to be a place that people look to for an example. Like Grace.
That was good. That was a good strategic roundtable. I'm just telling you.
District of that was, something that makes us a place of distinction for our stakeholders.
I know we got on a conversation here about dress code. So is it a 1-1 or is it a 1-3 strategy that we're talking about? 1.1. Yeah, look at the. Okay, well, it's not a test. It's not a test. No, it's like, is it academic growth and development? I've heard that reference. But then, is it 1.3 or is it both? Yeah. So safety and well-being, academic growth.
Performance too.
Well, but see, I think I heard more about it. So I'm making a little bit of a point here. So as the trustees, as you hear things from the community, a filter that you might put up is where does it fit in the work? Do you see what I'm saying? And
Well, I want it reflected in the work.
Okay, but see, that's what I'm wondering. Maybe we need to have a progress measure, I don't know how you measure fidelity with dress code.
That's part of what we feel like will be part of the cascading scorecard.
Okay.
Because that's specificity around the learning environment, which
Okay,
they certain
all right,
campus.
very good. So, but then we're saying linking up to 1-1, so it may be that there's, I'm just making stuff up here, but it may be that there's kind of like, you get a lot of this real estate on the cascaded scorecard, but we've got to put a bullet on here for all of us to have fidelity and dress code implementation. Do you see? So now it's living, we're putting it in context of 1.1, academic growth, right? We're trying to remove barriers from them to be able to learn. So my point is all this conversation might wind up being parked in a cascaded scorecard. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's absolutely fair. And I think, I just want to touch on a few thoughts here. And I think, Jamie, to what you said about the effort, I think absolutely we're going to see an increased effort in enforcement. I know the conversations, the meetings, just now that we've kind of really provided clarity in several different lanes that has been needed, we're going to see a concerted effort and focus on that enforcement piece. It's going to take time. We hopefully you know that, but we're committed to that, and we're going to continue to work with our principals, remind our campuses, and kind of build out that ripple effect to where it permeates through all the different classrooms and parts of our campuses where it needs to. And it's that shared ownership piece. But I think the one thing that I know our campuses and our campus principals appreciate is the fact that the board supports this, and that's one of the things we hear. Well, are we going to be supported by the board? And so, as we walk through this, I just want you guys to know that yes, we are working on this. We are committed to this, and we have been. This summer, I know that we've had a lot of those conversations centered on that, and we'll continue that. So.
Well, and I just thought it was important for you to hear it collectively, just so that you don't just hear it by yourself.
Yeah. Believe me, I have a daughter who's a junior and one that just graduated, and so we talk about those things, and just I think communication is a big thing too, and I think we're going to ask that our parents are partners in this too, in helping us convey the expectations and really help their children adhere to those. So it's going to be kind of a community effort, so. But
I think it's one that the teachers wanted. That's what I'm hearing. So I think it's going to be a good thing.
I think we'll be able to see it show up on the cascading scorecard. Like Greg always talks about is the system. Like, not are you enforcing dress code, but what's your system for ensuring that you're enforcing dress code? Because then that helps the teachers say, what is our system, and what is FHAL's role in this, and what is this department or grade level's role? And it has that collective ownership. Because if we just we're going to enforce dress code on the cascading scorecard, how do we measure that? What does that really look like? And then how can we improve our system if it's not meeting our expectations?
Well, and again, thank you for addressing all of that. I appreciate the energy and effort, and so thank you, and we're all very appreciative. And again, I think that the mindset behind it is just an elevation of just raising the bar, raising the standard. So we appreciate
I like that, Kaylee, because you presented to them in a positive way instead of a negative way. I think it'll go over a lot better that way.
I think that's all that.
is there anything else before leadership team?
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. You want to finish up?
Should have been less an hour ago.
Let's do the bathroom break.
Thank you, guys.
And then Taylor, you're back.
The sweet and spicy, like, I think it's a rocket.
Okay, we're waiting on you guys.
Okay, so I'm going to just start on this topic.
Go ahead.
So one of the things.
Nicole said, wait, did you say wait?
Oh.
Open session.
Yeah. So one of the things Brad and I were talking about, and y'all just listen while I'm,
We're listening.
so when something happens in the community that all of us have a question about, we all call Brad. He gets 7 phone calls. So
Is that true, Brad?
He loves it.
Pretty much, yeah, kind of close, maybe 5 to 7, depends.
I call and text.
But some of you know, you have a system and say, okay, hey, I'm kind of calling you for 2 others, you know.
Okay, go ahead, Shannon. What's your question?
But, go ahead.
Well, so the point is that I think on some of those items, that the way that we can maximize Brad's time is that we call Stephanie. So call Stephanie and be like, hey, you know, I heard, you know, this thing, or and she might not know it on phone call number 1, by phone call 2 or 3, she probably does know it. So, and then if Brad needs to communicate with everybody, then he just knows that, okay, you know, I need to, you know, send something, or I need to make a phone call or whatever. So I think it's just a way that we can kind of maximize his time, basically. The other thing that, and this is just another fast, so any questions that you have, not, I don't want to be legalistic on this. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Is that when a rumor kind of happens, and you have a question about it, I think we just need to go through Stephanie. Then the next thing is, so for our board agendas and agendas get set either Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on, you know, and when I say that, I mean, Brad and I sit down and we either do it Tuesday or Wednesday. The staff does a lot of work for the preparation of the meeting. So there's been a lot of times where you won't even, and when we set the agenda, by the way, there's no cover sheet, there's a lot of pieces of paper and a lot of work that goes into all of those items. So the ask is from the district or for admin is, can they send to the board Thursday?
The draft agenda,
Yeah.
right?
By what time did you have it? I can't remember.
What did we say, that the draft agenda on Thursday? You say
Well, it's afternoon.
like 2?
Afternoon.
Okay, afternoon.
Okay. So, just so that it buys them an additional day to get information and all of that stuff. So we would have our agendas to preview by Thursday at 4, let's say. But I'm just throwing out a number. So Thursday at 4. Well, so right now we're getting them on Wednesday. So the point is they're asking for an additional day. So.
That's really hard because there's so much to even digest too on the flip side of things, right?
Well, so that part is just so this part is just, you can still make changes, there can still be changes, because at Friday at 5 o'clock, that's when it's posted, and that's typically like.
That's when pretty much you get everything.
Right.
That's the full
Right.
agenda package.
Thank you. So basically, the information would be delayed by a day to the board.
Right, so instead of Wednesday, it'd be Thursday.
The draft agenda.
Right, draft agenda.
With the backup materials.
With the back.
Yeah, and that's where the time takes, just getting all the materials, the supporting documents, if you will, from all the different entities that are coming in with.
Yes, and sometimes part of it's ready on Wednesday and not, so then we're.
Well, we don't even have it all anyway.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Do you have a feeling, thought? Okay.
We'll just have to do it.
Sucks either way. Yeah. Good do it. It's tough. It's a lot of info. Yeah. So it is a lot for them too. So I mean, we're all getting it from all sides.
I mean, I just know that the weekend before the board meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What'd you say, Mary?
I just know the weekend
She just
before
plans.
Monday night board meeting, that
Oh, yeah.
weekend.
That's what I'm doing.
See,
Now
I
that you've got it set aside
printed
a couple
out
hours
nicely
or
with
whatever.
it so that it just absorbs in.
Osmosis.
Yeah, I just, boom.
Well,
I'm gonna try
and
that.
hopefully, I mean, the goal is that there's nothing surprising. The goal is that hopefully we're communicating enough that whatever's on there, it's not gonna be the first time you've heard of it or, you know, seen it or whatever, but, I mean, it's just kind of just to help them, I guess, basically, that was that question. So it sounds to me like that works.
Thank you. Whatever we can do for Brad.
No, it's really party.
But we still turn questions around by the same time Friday, correct?
Well, so, no, it's Monday.
Monday at 10. Monday
So
at
that's
10,
still the same, yeah, because, and again, meeting days are very jam-packed for the district, so they kind of clear their calendar, but, you know, if you go much past 10 o'clock, I mean, it throws
Sure.
a lot of things.
I
And
try
that
to-
way they can get us, yeah, that way they can get us
The other
before the
thing
board.
I wanted to ask about, this isn't gonna really apply to Dahlia for this year, because you're gonna have a ton of hours on your own, but the next year, we all, have to have 10 hours, and so I wanted to know, would you be interested in me looking into, some group training that we did as, you know, like more as a group than individual things, because I do think it's hard to find the 10 hours, and that's just my own personal opinion. Because what I could do is present just some options, or we just do it like we've always, you know, you just go, good luck finding your stuff, which again is fine too. I just was gonna,
Look into it.
okay. Well, then what I'll do is I'll
Appreciate that.
I'll look into that, and then I'll send an email that will kind of give you some options, and then if there's some group setting things, because to me, if we could learn together, that's kind of fun. It makes it not as painful.
Because you're at 4 today.
This is
I can't give you credit, yeah.
Yes! Okay, no, so anyway.
So wait, so Dahlia's new here. What do we get today? We get Innovate and IR.
I'm certified to get Innovate and evaluating and improving student outcomes.
Oh, good, because I was told I couldn't take it anywhere anyway.
I'm
So
certified.
Wow,
You
excellent.
just
It's only
got it.
offered in such
Oh.
places.
Yeah,
Because when Dahlia and I went, she went to the new teacher, well, the new trustee thing,
Yes.
but when she was a new trustee, I went to the session that's about rebuild or renovate,
Oh,
like
okay.
whether to knock down
That's your
schools.
4.3, your.
It was great.
Yeah,
When he said, how many people in this room have school buildings over 100 years, I saw those hands go up.
yeah.
Nobody from Frisco raised their hand though.
Yeah.
Where was this you went to, Diana?
In leadership, in June, what, first week of June, Dahlia?
Yes.
Yeah, first week of June.
Summer Leadership Institute,
TABC.
SLI.
Oh,
Yeah.
TABC.
So we just,
I'll take
so
it.
everybody
Take
knows, the
it.
reason I can give it is
TS, what
it's
is it?
all about
Yes.
establishing
Tad.
leading measures, lagging measures. We just did,
I would think this
we
would
just
be
did
a topic.
3 hours.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so then the next thing is, we're gonna go to executive session at this time. Hold on, let me read.
Stephanie's ready to do her job.
I have the agenda sitting right here.
Do you want
I
to
don't
go
know,
across?
I don't know where it's at.
Ben is waiting to hit the button.
Oh, okay, so we're going to executive session in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, subchapters D and E. So we're back in session at 4:33, and we are now adjourned at 4:33.